Got a bunch more ripe tomatoes.
Thank you. There's extra chairs over there too, if anybody's looking.
I didn't look carefully.
Yeah, there's.
I need to pick.
One was done. The annual is you and
I
me
need to
done.
pick tomatoes.
Yeah, I mean, tomatoes will
That's
last
me.
another couple of days or
It's,
Thank you, George.
that's me.
Greatly appreciated.
So what you're saying is I've got,
So you're on.
Well, maybe I just can't count anymore.
I don't think
Hello?
Let me know if Susan.
Looks like
You
10
have 10 fingers, though.
I do have 10 fingers. That means I will be able to get those.
Yes, but do you know where they all are?
Well, interesting you should mention that, because in Europe, you know, here we go,
Find the
1,
water
2, 3,
line.
4, 5.
Hey, we found it.
In Europe, you go.
Is it on the,
1, 2, 3,
against the
4,
fence?
5. How do you Greeks do it?
Yeah.
Water line, right?
Count to 5 with your
They
fingers.
know where the easement is, it's up there. He doesn't have to touch the barrier.
That's a barrier.
They can get water either.
Gives them more volume to pull from.
Right.
And I got that, I spent half an hour.
All right, are we ready?
See our,
I think that's a water department issue,
Yeah.
not the
talking to the gal that's in charge of the
final
project
planning.
That was, I mean, I could have
All right, everyone. I'm going to call this meeting of August 24th, 2016 there's 7 o'clock. All right. First thing, we have meeting minutes.
Lots of them.
Lots of them.
Lots of them.
We have some of them here. You got them all.
Colleen, did you get, I think I sent a couple of really
did.
small typos.
Yeah, they were.
Okay, all right.
I think I got everybody's, and George looked at his.
Did you spell Deb Taverna's name right?
I didn't get that one.
Okay. That's in
It was the
Want
last
to do them one at a
meeting.
time as we go
August
along?
10th.
Want to do a bunch or one at a time?
You have to do them one at a
One
time.
at a time.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
All right. Meeting for 5/25, June 22nd, 2016.
Okay.
Did somebody have any comments?
I think I sent them in, and they were included.
I did too. So I move to approve the minutes of 6/22, 2016.
All's in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
May 13th.
Minutes for July 13th, 2016. Anybody have any comments, questions?
No.
Move to accept the minutes of July 13th.
Second?
All's in favor?
Aye.
Abstain.
Last one. 8/10/2016. Is that the one you had some questions
No,
about,
there's
man?
728 still.
You said it, please?
728's in there.
Not listed on the agenda.
Not listed on the agenda.
On mine.
No.
Oh,
This is the revised agenda. So
revised.
Yeah, well, we got them for 728, we ought to do them.
All right.
All right, 7:28 minutes. Did anybody have any comments? Errors?
Move to accept the minutes of
Second.
728.
Second.
All's in favor?
Aye.
We'll eventually get to you, Nan.
That's okay.
8/10/2016.
Page 3. Middle of the page, left-hand side. Deb Taverna. Correct the spelling, please.
Okay.
Any other ones?
Move to accept minutes of 8:10 as amended.
Second?
All's in favor?
Aye.
I'm going to abstain on that one, okay?
Who's that?
All right. Continue with public hearings. 12 Kidder Road, Loop Real Estate Corp. Requests a site plan approval under section 195-104 special permit, 195-55 major business complex, 195-21.J.1 allowing driveway entrance with 150 feet, 195-44C buffer strip requirements from side lot line waiver from the reviewed traffic study and any other relief that may be deemed necessary. All right.
Good evening, John Bikini, Loop Real Estate, 12 Kidder Road.
All right. I don't think you, do you have any comments to add?
I'm here at your pleasure.
All right, Ed, we'll start with you.
Okay, we got this green smart decor fence. Is that something you submitted to us?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And you'd be willing to put that on the chain link fence?
That is correct.
Okay. Good. Got a comment to make based on our site visit. You guys were having, we were talking about that water main and that location of the water main on the little dog leg.
Yes, sir.
Over down to Chamberlain. On your engineer's plans, it locates a right-of-way and the water main up against the 495 easement. When you're cleaning out the dog leg, what we'd like you to consider, or what I'd like you to consider is just cleaning out the part along 495 where the water main is and making more of an effort to find the water main and leaving that berm alone. So that's my comments, if you could. Just as a good neighborly gesture.
Glenn?
Well, after looking at it, the road going up into there, it's not as steep as I originally had thought, so I think it's gonna be fine, and looking at it, I think it's gonna be all hard digging in there anyhow. It'd be kinda almost crazy to try to. We're almost matching the other driveway as well, so.
Okay, I think that's gonna be fine. On the retention area in the back, possibly putting a berm between there and the property line and putting your fence on top of that, is that something you?
We'll do what we can that makes sense.
Okay. That seems like it's, yeah,
It's a lot easier to put the dirt there than take it away.
okay. On the back side of the retention area, is it possible to put, I know on jobs that I've been on, sometimes if you get close to a foundation with a septic system, they'll make you put I forget what it's called, it's like a plastic, like a rubberized plastic blanket that you can put in there to stop any flow from going in one direction. Would it be possible to, I don't know if you've ever worked with that before in the past?
I think because of the depth of everything, I don't think that would have to dig down halfway to China for it to have an effect.
No, I'm saying just to give, you're going down what,
5 feet, 6
5
feet.
So between the 5 feet you're going down, you'll be probably down to his footings at his house anyhow. You know what I mean? Just to stop it from going, the water
We
from going
can, we can
that
certainly
way.
review that, absolutely.
Yeah, okay, that'd probably make the neighbor a little happy, a little security for him that he doesn't get flooded out. That's all I got. I'm good with that.
Nancy?
Yeah, after doing the site walk, I have concerns that if that dog leg is cleaned out, I do not want to see a drive of any kind put in there into the residential area.
There is nothing intended for that at this time. The gate on the end, just to have access to it in the event that there's an emergency with the water main.
So I wouldn't want to see a restriction put in here that says no open road.
No access from
No
Chamberlain.
no access. Yeah, no open access through that dog leg.
That's fair enough.
we may need access through it to do maintenance on.
Understand.
Yeah, but
Okay,
that would be a-
Understand, but it's gated,
okay, yes,
locked and gated.
correct.
Yeah.
Yep.
You set?
Yep, I'm set.
Mike?
Yeah, I think that would be good. I'm a little bit concerned, neighborhood kids getting up in there behind the wall and the berm and having a big party and waking Joe up at 3 in the morning. So, but I think that would be good if we have some condition in there.
Okay. George?
Was there any thought about moving that dumpster we talked about? Or are you gonna leave it in that corner?
I've given it thought, but I don't see, it's a dumpster that's probably gonna be dumped once a week, and it can be certainly dumped during the day. So it's not gonna impact anybody, not an early morning one, if you will.
I believe that one of the letters we had was concerned about the dumpster being large enough to handle the amount of spaces that you have here. What happens if you need an additional dumpster?
We're planning on putting a 20-yard dumpster in there. The area has been sized to accommodate it. So a 20-yard dumpster should be more than enough to take care of what's going to happen there. More than enough. The other properties have, I think, 6-yard dumpsters on it, and they get dumped once a week. So,
Okay, and then, just to reiterate, I assume you're still fine with not to be used as auto repair, no outside storage. Like, one of the properties on Kidder has some outside storage units plopped in the parking lot. So, I just want to make sure you're still okay with that.
when you say auto repair, what do you mean by an auto repair outside?
In other words, you're renting the space to a place that's going to do auto repairs inside there, like.
Correct. Yeah, the intention is not to have a mess outside of the property.
You rent it to a landscaper and he's got to work on his vehicles or something, that's one thing.
Yeah.
Not to rent it to Joe's auto garage.
As an outside auto garage, no.
Oak Street has the
is the-
same restrictions on it.
Is there an expectation that vehicles would be stored in this building or worked on in this building?
That could be, yes.
So, with that, if there's any landscape people that are gonna do work, you're supposed to have the appropriate spill kits in place. And if there's any floor drains, they gotta meet the sewer
The-
department's regulations.
The floor drains will go into an MDC trap.
Okay, good. Okay. All right, I think I'm okay.
Has this been
Ian.
identified to the building?
I'm all set, thank you.
All
Identified to
set.
the building inspectors?
Anything from engineering?
Let him worry about that.
I don't know.
I do have some minor things that I can take care of later.
All right, you don't need them in the public record.
They won't be in the public record, no. It's just
Right.
little details of things that won't affect your decision.
All right. I really don't have much to comment right now, but it's still public hearing, so we have to take questions from the public too. Anybody from the public want to get up and say anything?
Good evening. I'm Joseph Hyder, 29 Chamberlain Road, Chelmsford. First off, thank you for doing the walk around. I hope it eased some questions and helped you understand what we're up against. I had a couple of thoughts when he said they're going to try to work on not having outside storage. Is that like, would that be like a dead storage idea if you just leave something at all? Or is that kind of any kind of storage blanket for working outside or leaving it outside? Or leaving it in the building forever, you know?
We will clarify this, but I'm assuming that it's the same restrictions that they have a lot of Oak Street over there, where like the horseshoe is and stuff there, where they have garages. Nobody's really allowed to have parking. They're allowed to park a vehicle that they, part of their business, but you can't have be a vehicle that's being worked on. You can't have a storage container.
So things that they drive back and forth to work, they can park and take a company truck
Correct.
per se, and then come home,
Yeah.
but it wouldn't be left there for weeks and weeks and weeks on end, or days over, you know. Okay. All right. The only other thought I had was on the soil conditions, like Glenn mentioned, being in the sewer business for a number of years, there was areas where, in fact, in this town, we used to work with Richie Day, we would trench along a property area, put in a plastic fabric, backfill it with a clay barrier, and then move 10 feet away, 15 feet away, whatever was designed, and then put in the leach field so it would stop any water from going in a certain direction. I was picking up what Glenn mentioned. I've done that in many areas. Usually you try to get below, like in this case, I have an 8-foot basement, so you probably want to reach the 8-foot elevation if possible. That's the only, out of my background, that's the only thought I had. Thank you.
Okay.
If you have any questions, I'll be sitting right there.
Hi, this is I'm Mary Ellen Hyder. I'm 29 Chamberlain Road. I'm the abutter to this property as well. So I know that we got copies of the green space artificial fabric on a chain link fence. Currently, I know you just did a site visit this evening. As you noticed, a good majority of our property is already fenced with white plastic fencing. I would like that to continue because I think with chain link and this artificial turf, it's going to look odd versus the rest of the yard is fenced in based on the project that's on the other side of us. So I'd appreciate it if the board would consider that. Thank you.
Is there anybody else from the public? Seeing none.
Move to close the public
Are
hearing.
Should we find out if he's gonna do the white chain, white vinyl before we close the public?
Yeah.
Question,
Yes.
you willing to do the white vinyl fence instead of the,
The white vinyl fence is not durable. That's the problem with it. If you look at the fence that's been, excuse me, already been installed there, it's starting to sag, it's discolored, and it's just not going to be durable. That's the problem with it.
okay, so you,
I mean.
It becomes a
nothing-
maintenance
not-
issue.
Nothing from nothing. I drove around your other properties, the chain link fences, you have a lot of stuff growing through them when they've been pulled down. I mean, the one that the highway department was in, I drove around that. There's paces of it cut out. You know, it is what it is what it is. It's gonna come up to a vote for the board. And, you know, we're gonna make our decision, that's all there is to it, it's one way or the other. So, I guess we can close the public hearing now?
Okay, then I move to close the public hearing on PB 2016-07.
I have a second.
Second.
All's in favor?
aye,
All right, well, this is where the rub is.
You want to have Evan draft the decision? We don't have a time frame on this, Evan, right?
We're still well within our time frame.
So we want to draft a decision for the next meeting, and then we'll vote on it then? I think that's,
Yeah, I think this one probably, we want to be pretty
I
precise.
certainly can draft a decision without some indication from that it's going to be pretty open.
Yeah.
they,
Well,
I-
the other thing that sorry, Ed. The other thing that I remember that we were talked about originally that hasn't been brought up too was the hours of operation. I knew we were talking about certain hours of operation that this place would be open. Is that,
Yeah, we did touch on it.
we did touch on that, but that needs to be.
It may
in
have
the
been
final.
discussed, but some of these items, you may want to speak to the proponent. Under zoning, it's allowed 24/7. I mean, that's the nature of an indoor contractor's facility. If you got a snow plowing or an electrician or a rotor rooter, they're open 24 hours a day.
Yeah.
So what's being proposed is a 24-hour operation that's allowed under zoning. If you're gonna condition it, like I said, I mean, I think you need to at least try to work that out with the applicant.
Well, let's go around the board. We'll see if we get a consensus around here. How do you feel about hours of operation? And do you think it should be a 24/7 operation, or?
And this may be an industrial zoning, but it's smack dab in the middle of a lot of residential. And I think that's a problem.
If I may, the lot of residential has been inserted in the industrial area, unfortunately.
But it's still there.
Mike, how do you feel?
On the hours of operation, I think the nature of the kind of things that you put in here is such that at least for at some points, you want to allow it to be 24. As you said, the snow plow, the electrician and the roto, dealing with emergencies. If there are other ways, I mean, we've already limited what can be parked out there in the lot. I think that may be as far as we can go, or as we ought to go.
George, how do you feel about it?
I don't see how you can condition it,
Yeah.
not this type of building.
Ed?
I don't think we can condition it, and seeing as both lots of, seeing as it abuts 495, it's gonna be pretty noisy round the clock.
I'll agree. I don't think there's a way we can condition it, because it's by right.
No. Ann?
I agree exactly with what Glenn said.
All right.
Have a right 24 hours and,
And if
I
it's
think we
excessive
should-
noise, they can call the police department.
exactly, I don't think we should attempt to put any conditions on it. I understand the comment that it's in a residential area, but, that's a fact of life. You don't have to like it, but it's the reality of the site.
All right. All right, so Evan, the other things we had going on here was the storage outside?
Yep, those are pretty boilerplate conditions for a indoor contractor.
Kind of like what
Facility.
they have on Oak Street, because I know they already had issues over there with the building
I
department
think,
last
I
year.
think Gene Ave is probably the most recent planning board decision
Yeah,
that has these conditions in it.
yeah.
So I'll pull from there. If there's an Oak Street one, I'll pull from that as well. The only clarification I need at this point is where is this green plastic, what sections of fencing is this green plastic
What we were talking about was through here.
along the rear property line?
Correct.
Okay.
So you're not putting any on
What
the other
about
side?
on the highway,
There's a berm.
on this section?
There's really nothing over there. He's got a wall in now.
Yeah, you got it.
Which may not be the.
Yeah.
That holds up if you,
Were you gonna put a fence where that wall is, or
Behind it, yes.
behind it? Okay.
Mhm.
So you wouldn't even see the fence behind the wall anyhow, so it kind of defeats the purpose
It's a
of
security issue.
it. Yeah.
Unless you knock down,
Unless they
knock down the wall.
If they knock down the wall, taking the dirt out, then you're gonna have to have
Then that's a
something,
whole,
other can of
Beyond
worms.
us.
something that got nothing to do with us. That's,
All right, so you've got the location that
Yep.
it's going.
So I have enough to draft a decision.
And the double row of trees according to this
Yep.
submission.
Most recent landscape plan?
Yeah.
Any other ones from anybody?
Just the extended surface of the berm. They're moving it back, this one doesn't show it, but they're moving it back another 10 feet.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, they moved it, they've extended the land area on the back side of the berm.
Draw on yours and just send it down as to what was agreed
It
upon?
was, I'd have to find it,
Evan, we'll give you a full sheet.
All right, thank you.
yeah.
Yeah,
You had extended the.
Yes, correct,
yeah,
To give it more land area for the
correct,
yeah.
double row.
correct.
Okay.
Do we have anything for the dumpster? Do we need to, George, do
No,
we need yours?
Yeah, all set?
If he needs to put in another dumpster, he's gonna have to come back before us, a site plan, so.
Yeah. All right.
Okay, so
We'll
I'll
see you in
draft
2
a
weeks.
decision for the September 14th. Is that your next meeting?
See you on September 14th.
Thank you very much.
Move to continue to September 14th.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Next on our agenda is 11 Cushing Place, which has been continued to 9/14. You have to read.
This is from Iliopolis and the Iliopolis Attorneys at Law regarding Cushing Place. Dear Chelmsford Planning Board, this firm has been consulted and retained by WE Acquisitions LLC, Win Stanley Enterprises LLC, the purchaser of property commonly known and numbered as 11 Cushing Place, Chelmsford, Massachusetts. Property. Please allow this letter to serve as a formal request to continue the hearing on August 24th to September 14th. Thank you for your ongoing efforts and consideration of this project. If you have any questions or concerns on the above, please do not hesitate to contact my office, Philip M. Iliopolis, Esquire. So I'll make a motion to continue 11 Cushing Place without testimony to our September 14th meeting.
Second.
All's in favor?
Aye.
All right. Now for the main event that everybody's come for. And I'm glad to see such a large turnout of town meeting reps and residents. The Chelmsford Planning Board will conduct a public hearing pursuant to G.L.C. 40AS5 on Wednesday, August 24th, 2016 at 7 p.m. at town offices located at 50 Billerica Road in Chelmsford, Mass. For the purpose of this, receiving public comment and to adopt a new zoning bylaw, Article XX1V, Route 129 Business, Residential, and Housing within the 129 Limits Industrial Zone District, as defined in the proposed overlay map.
You gotta read the rest of
I don't have it here.
it. You gotta read the rest of it.
Copies of proposed amendments are available for review between 9 a.m. and 4 p.m. at office at the town clerk and the office of the planning board and town offices at 50 Billerica Road, Chelmsford, Mass. Per order of Henry Parley, Chair, Chelmsford Planning Board. Did you have any other letters to be read in there?
We do. Do we want to, should we read the letters, Evan, or wait till the presentation?
Whatever you want to do.
Might as well read the letters.
Get them over with.
So we have several letters from various departments throughout town. First one's from the Department of Public Works in regards to Billerica Road area sewer capacity. Dear members, this office has been asked to comment on sewer capacity in Billerica Road Industrial Commercial Zone. As you may be aware, this area was once its own sewer district known as Chelmsford Center Industrial Sewer District and is now part of the townwide sewer maintained by DPW Sewer Division. We currently have a project underway at a pump station located on Progress Ave. The project includes installation of a second wet well, new pumps, new backup generator, and all new enclosed electronics. For the reason of this upgrade was the existing station was outdated and had issues during inclement weather. In addition, for the second wet well for maintenance purposes, but was to also maximize the output of the station for the future. The existing station was running more or less at capacity during peak hour flows. The new design was to maximize output based on restriction of 8-inch force main that exits the station. With the addition of the second wet well and a better engineered pump design, capacity is increased. Though thought was given to all existing development, incoming permitted development, and redevelopment time of design, and a percentage for increased growth. Any further large-scale development or redevelopment would create a need for further upgrades to not only the 8-inch line leaving Progress Ave pump station, but analysis of lines at Billerica Road and the cross-country interceptor line to ensure adequate capacity. If you have any questions, please contact this office, Steve Yanley. Next one is from the Chelmsford Public Schools. To Community Development, dear Mr. Belansky, you asked various town departments to answer questions regarding Route 129 Overlay District in an email dated August 1, 2016. The responses are to guide the planning board in their work on the proposed zoning. You asked the school department, what concerns, if any, would there be if new development included multifamily housing? The school committee discussed this matter at the meeting on Tuesday, August 16, 2016. While we do not anticipate any significant enrollment issues if multifamily housing is a component of the rezoning plan, notice of any contemplated housing would be appreciated to allow for the long-term enrollment planning and districting of our schools. Please be assured the school department will continue to provide the best possible education for the children of Chelmsford, no matter what decision the planning board makes relative to this matter. Yours truly, W. Allen Thomas, Chairman, Chelmsford School Committee. Next one is from Gary Ryan, Fire Department. Based on our current staffing and operational support, I would recommend a building height of no more than 75 feet. Building with an occupied floor above 75 feet are considered high-rise buildings. See explanation below. And require staffing changes to meet the additional challenges of these building pose. Please call me with any questions and concern. And then there's a, well, I guess I keep reading, right? How is a high-rise building? How high is a high-rise building? This discussion regarding building height leads to a prime question: at what height is a building considered a high-rise? High-rise building is defined in Chapter 2 of the IBC as building with occupied floor located more than 75 feet above the lowest level of fire department vehicle access. Unlike the standard building height dimension regulated by IBC, the height of determining high-rise building is determined by two different points of measurement: the lowest level of fire access and the highest occupied floor. Regarding the bottom point of the measurement, if the building is constructed on a site that has varying grade levels around its perimeter, the measurement is not to be taken at the grade plane as defined by the IBC. Rather, dimensions measured to the actual surface of the ground or pavement that is accessible by fire department vehicles. This measurement point can be above or below the grade plane. For upper measurement point, this is taken at the floor level and not overall height of the building. For example, if the building has an overall height of 80 feet, the highest occupied floor is at 70 feet, it is not considered a high-rise building. However, the building has an occupied roof decks, but excluding occupancy for maintenance purposes, some building officials would consider the roof as an occupied floor, thereby making the roof and not the enclosed floor below the point of measurement. Knowing where to take the measurement is important, but why is the measurement limited to 75 feet? To understand this, you have to understand firefighting capabilities. Although platform and area ladder trucks have reached that exceed 75 feet, geometry may factor in the actual reach capacities of the fire department. Excuse me. Although the measurement is to the ground level of the fire department access, there is no requirement for how close the access must be to the building beyond the International Fire Code requirement that fire access roads extend to within 150 feet of all portions of the building's first story. Therefore, the farther the truck is from the building, the lower the height it can reach. The Insurance Services Office, ISO, which rates fire departments, has set a maximum reach of 100 feet to achieve maximum points in this category. This gives the fire department a 25-foot margin if they encounter differing circumstances at the incident sites, such as the location of a fire lane from the building. Chief G. Ryan, Chelmsford Fire Department. This is from the police department. The police department's main concern would involve any restaurant and food services that would have outdoor dining areas. We want to ensure proper spacing, elevation, and barriers. Another concern would be proper handicap parking in and around these areas. James Spinney, Chief of Police. This one's to the Chelmsford Water Department. The Chelmsford Water District can supply water needs to accommodate our concerns. That's Bob Delaney. Mark Dupel, Building Department has no concerns at this point. Construction aspect would be code related to mixed-use separations, etc., which will be addressed at permitting stage. And this is a letter that went out to questions for each department. The departments that were sent to: Water District, Sewer Division, Fire Department, Police, Health, Schools, Building. Should I read the questions, you think? Or? So this letter's on file. What we did is we reached out to those departments with some general questions, and the letters I read were their feedback.
All right. Evan, you want to do the presentation? And
Sure, we'll do a quick presentation.
people that are looking, there's the screen here and the screen up next to you.
Okay, so the first slide identifies the study area that is the subject to tonight's discussion. This study area consists of 623 acres bounded by River Neck Road, Route 3, Mill Road, and Turnpike Road, generally located at the intersection of Route 3 and 495. It consists of 72 buildings, approximately 4.7 million square feet. Has a diverse range of ownership, tenants, and businesses, ranging from small, locally owned and operated businesses to world and national and regional headquarters. Business types range from light industrial, R&D, office, manufacturing, warehouse distribution. Primarily characterized as a first-generation office industrial park, primarily built in the 70s and into the mid-80s. So the town's Economic Development Committee has spent the majority of the last 3 years conducting research, primarily through some roundtables. And this slide identifies those summary related to market trends and challenges. First, the town's in a regional competition. Regional is defined as 128 down to Mass Pike, up to I-93. Locally, Route 3 going from Burlington to Lowell, including the town of Westford as well. Over the years, there's been a change in industry types. The park is seeing more healthcare and medical device companies, as well as advanced manufacturing. Businesses within the park have indicated that they're changing their business model and operations, specifically to reduce expenses, trying to shed non-core operations such as full-scale cafeterias, things of that nature. They're also trying to increase productivity by placing more workers in less square footage. Businesses have indicated that they have a change in locational decision criteria. Many years ago, tax rate, location used to be highly ranked. Focus is now on retention and attraction of employees. A theme referred to as urban migration, which is not related to urban city environments, but a sense of place that has urban characteristics, such as a Burlington, Linfield Marketplace, Westwood Station, and Waltham. Businesses have also indicated that they are chasing young talent, referred to as millennials. Finally, businesses have expressed an increased importance given to quality of life within their location of an office park, such as connectivity, walkability, and curb appeal related to aesthetics. So the EDC is also keyed in on market trends and challenges related to the Route 129 park itself. Over the last decade, rents averaged between $7.50 to $8.50. This is fairly low, even for other parts of town. It's value-oriented. All decisions within the park are value decisions, whether it's the property owner, the current business, or a prospective business. Park has experienced elevated vacancy rates over the last decade. As you can see, in 2011, there was a low of 200,000 vacant square footage, which is 4% of the park, to a high of in 2000 to a high of 624,000 in first quarter 2016. 10-year average is over 500,000 square feet of vacant space. This does not include 300,000 square feet for Kronos, as well as the 200,000 square feet for Mercury, both which will be leaving sometime in April of 2017. Next trend and challenge is a lack of private investment and reinvestment within the park. There's a limited number of Class A office space, high depreciation rates. We average about 27%. In 2007, it was at 27%. 2010 was at 19%. And in 2016, we're back up to 27%. So 7 years outside of the Great Recession, we remain at our all-time high depreciation rate. Park has a challenge in attracting high-value businesses. It lacks curb appeal. When people come to the park for the first time, a prospective business owner or decision maker, first impressions are not ideal. Park lacks dedicated transit to commuter rail located in Lowell and Billerica. The park lacks business amenities. What we've heard from businesses is that there's a need to plan a car trip, upwards of 30 minutes round trip, to get to any type of business amenity that an employee may be interested in pursuing during the workday. While the park has provided for the town over the last 25 years, such as tax base and employment base, the park has experienced an incremental decline over a long period of time. It's no longer serving the town in the same capacity that it did in the early 90s when it was at its peak. Regional and local marketplace have reacted accordingly. They've essentially passed by Chelmsford. It's not on the radar screen for consideration. Therefore, the park struggles to remain competitive within the regional marketplace. Without proactive action, trends are expected to continue. There's concern about missed opportunities within the marketplace. Recent relocations may continue. Recent development investment within the park is low value. Contractor yards seem to be the primary interest within the park right now. So there's a concern about market perception and image. These are some slides of first impressions, high vacancy rates, primarily along Route 129 Billerica Road. Once you leave Billerica Road and you turn down any of the side streets, there's vacant, underutilized, and obsolete buildings, and the park has its fair share of empty parking lots. Next slide begins to identify a framework for moving forward within a zoning strategy. Essentially, the strategy is choose to compete within the regional marketplace by reinvesting in the park, by adopting strategic zoning overlay to change the dynamics. The zoning overlay would permit higher building heights, encourage parking structures, and also include expedited and flexible permitting. It would preserve and enhance the primary function as an office, industrial, and R&D park. By this, the purpose and intent is not to convert this into a Drum Hill or a Route 9 in Natick or Framingham or a Route 1 in Peabody or Saugus, but continue it as an office park for employment and tax revenue. Provide an opportunity to convert existing square footage from traditional office, industrial, and warehouse to business amenities. Promote orderly and effective and quality development. That would be through the planning board development review process. Business amenities are proposed to include retail, restaurants, residential. Bylaw would consider conversion to include reuse, redevelopment, and new construction. Framework has a vision to create walkability and connectivity between properties, as well as create a live, work, play environment. So the specific proposal is to adopt an overlay district. An overlay district has the underlying zoning remains in place. Essentially, the existing light industrial zoning would remain in place. Additional new uses, or in other words, additional new property rights would be granted. Participation in the overlay is entirely voluntary. It is not a requirement. It's something that a property owner or a prospective developer or a business would choose to voluntarily do permitting under. The bylaw is proposing to allow the permitted uses to include retail and restaurants, multifamily by special permit only, drive-throughs for freestanding uses and businesses only. Prohibited uses would be primarily within the commercial exclusion zone. commercial uses would be prohibited entirely and only permit multifamily by special permit. All drive-throughs for fast food restaurants would be prohibited. Special provisions within the proposed zoning include height parking structures and conversion of existing square footage. The key to the permit process is to couple this with the Community Enhancement Investment Overlay District, which town meeting approved several years ago, and the planning board has seen a number of projects permitted through the COID process. Because the bylaw is coupled directly with the COID process, we thought it was beneficial to remind everybody, refresh people's memory on what the key points of the COID entail. It requires upfront planning board approval to participate. It's a two-step process. The first step is basically a concept preliminary meeting with the planning board. That's where the planning board gives its upfront conceptual approval to then move forward with phase two. Phase two is where the full development proposal is reviewed on a technical level, abutter notification and public hearings take place. The COID strengthens the planning board regulatory authority, whereby the planning board, the chief elected planners in town, are the sole permitting board. They would review all aspects of the project related to traffic, drainage, flooding, aesthetics. All special permits would come to the planning board. It would create a partnership between the planning board and the applicant, so as to provide opportunities to address specific neighborhood and abutter concerns that may otherwise be not be able to be addressed in a similar manner. Requires consistency with the planning board's design guidelines related to architecture, site layout and design. Project under COID, as well as this proposed overlay, is required to be a better option than what would be allowed under underlying zoning. Examples would be less impact, such as less square footage, less traffic, less pavement. It would require an improved design, again related to shielding parking, reducing curb cuts, improving traffic. It also requires a public benefit, such as pedestrian amenities, shared parking, open space. This slide indicates the current proposed zoning overlay. The properties, the 72 properties outlined in black, including the perimeter, are within the overlay. The properties that are within the red outlined area are proposed to be within the commercial exclusion zone. Those properties would not be allowed to participate within the commercial uses of the overlay, and only multifamily would be permitted by special permit. The remaining portion of the overlay outside of the red outline would be applicable for both commercial uses as well as multifamily uses. This is the last slide, so just some visual examples as to concepts that the proposed bylaw is contemplating. Starting on the upper left corner, that first column contemplates freestanding construction. That first picture is of the retail plaza at the Billerica line, just beyond the Route 3 bridge. The next two slides are freestanding. One is a restaurant, second one is a sports club. I believe those are both in Burlington. Middle column is examples of, again, basic examples of what residential may look like. As you can see, somewhat modern architecture. Third column represents mixed use. The first slide shows a restaurant with office above. Middle slide shows business amenities on the first floor with likely residential or office above. In the third one, although not from Chelmsford, certainly is probably one of the better examples of an existing office building that could be converted. The first floor could be converted from office to business amenities. The last slide on the bottom is an example from Bedford, Mass. On Route 62, showing a first-generation office building, single-story office building, entirely converted to 3 restaurants there. So that gives you another perspective as to what the bylaw contemplates as far as conversion of existing square footage. So that's the presentation at a very high level.
Well, basically, what Evan has said in a nutshell is, and if I go around town a lot, I'm around the state a lot, there's a lot of open space in commercial. The whole industry is changing. You talk about Burlington started with a bulldozer. There's a lot of open space, there's a lot of challenges, and we look forward to hearing people's comments. And this is we're trying to make steps to hopefully not have that part of the town go too empty. I don't know if any other board members have comments other than opening it up to the public, which is kind of for.
First, I think it should, for the record, that all town meeting members were sent out notices. I know at the tri-board or quad-board meeting, we mentioned about sending out to 1 or 2 precincts. The decision came down that all town meeting members were notified of this meeting, were also sent a copy of the proposed bylaw. So I want to know that we've tried to reach out. You're the eyes and ears of your neighborhood, so we've tried to reach out there. And the other part too, and most of you know this, but this is an overlay. The underlying zoning that's there now does not change. So if someone wants to do something there and they fall within the zoning, that's not changing. This is adding to, basically on top of the zoning that's there. With that, I had one comment, and I don't know if now's the time to bring it up, but I think there should be one more thing added to this bylaw, and it should be under B3. Right after B3, there should be a line that basically mimics the line that's just above B, that says the above uses, and it should be 2 and 3 are not permitted in the exclusion zone as defined in the overlay district map. Just to make sure that is ultimately clear that commercial is not allowed in that exclusionary zone. So that was one thing I thought of that I read through this that I think should be located right after B3. That's all I have for comments at the moment.
Anybody else? Seeing none? Anybody from, I'm sure there's a couple people from the public.
Before you go to the public, just to add to George's comments, all abutters, 2 abutters along Riverneck, Mill, and Turnpike were notified. I believe that's 600 plus residential abutters were directly notified via mail, as well as all 72 property owners within the proposed overlay district were notified as well. Just for a purpose of moving forward, do you want to take any and all questions and comments, or do you want to try to maybe break it up into the why before getting into the bylaw, or just take it all at once?
I think that's a good idea. We'll take and do it. If anybody questions why we're doing this, we'll start with that. I'm going to ask you to come up to the mic and speak because we are taking it on public TV. Is anybody? All right. Give him a push.
My name is Bob Joyce. Live at 103 Turnpike Road, so I'm an abutter. I'm also a Precinct 1 town meeting rep. And for purposes of my discussions tonight, anything I say and will say tonight is strictly from a personal point of view and does not reflect my views or the Board of Selectmen's views. That will take place at another time when this article will go forward and the Board of Selectmen will have to sign the warrant to put it on the warrant.
Well, Mr. Joyce, you know, we're here to, we want your comments. This is about why it needs to be done.
I'm getting to it.
You're getting to it? All right, speed it up.
Just wanna And I should also like to point out that all these people that came here tonight really had a problem, because not are there no signs in any of the entrances.
Is this about
Yeah,
the
well,
wise?
You need to speak for yourself, not for the other people in the room. You're speaking individually
Okay, I'm speaking
tonight.
for myself.
Or
Okay?
yourself only.
Okay? So no signs were put up in the lobbies.
Once it was told to us, there is one down there now.
There should be two, one at each end.
Okay, well, there's
Okay.
one down by the main door that most people come
Mr.
in.
Joyce, can you
But for
please-
most people, they didn't know where the meeting was. And the second thing that surprised a lot of people is that when they pulled in the front driveway, they couldn't get a parking space because a lot of them haven't been here since the new change. So,
You can bring that to the selectmen's
yeah.
meeting.
Well, no, I think that's kind of a flip remark.
Mr.
Okay.
Joyce, Mr. Joyce, this is the third time I've asked you to get onto the question of the why.
Okay, I'm going to tell you why. Okay? I was on this board several years ago when we turned this proposal down. And the reason why initially I am opposed to this is because this is nothing except money. The idea is, someone said that's right in the back. The whole point of this, and Paul Cohen, the town manager, has had this on his bucket list for several years. And the whole point of it is to build new buildings or improve new buildings and raise taxes. And I think that's the wrong reason to do it. Outside of Hewlett-Packard, I don't remember any A-class company locating in this town, with the exception of Cronus and maybe a couple of others.
So you're
Some.
asking us the why question, or are you just making
Yeah,
a statement?
No, I'm telling you why, because of money,
It's a question.
okay?
Question.
I hope you're this strict on everybody else, Henry.
Yes, I
Okay.
am, Bob, but
Okay.
Bob,
You gotta give me and all these people out here some leeway, okay?
Bob, you've been to all the meetings. You know what's going on.
Doesn't matter. These people haven't been to all the
Well,
meetings. And they wouldn't have been to the meeting
Bob,
if I didn't bring it up.
they can speak for themselves. That's why they're here. You're not speaking for them. They have time to speak. We will listen.
That's right. And I'm
So-
not speaking for them, but had I not
do.
brought it up at the last meeting, they wouldn't have been here, because they wouldn't have been invited. It was an afterthought.
Really.
So why,
Shame on you.
if we're gonna, well, shame on you, too.
Shame on you.
know, But I have a lot to be proud of. I represent the neighborhoods in this town, not the high-end.
Nobody cares what you represent, Bob. We want to
thank
know
you.
why you're here tonight.
I am here because it's all about money.
Okay. You made your
And-
point.
And I don't believe a lot of the numbers that have been used in the previous meetings, I don't believe them. I
Okay.
don't believe they're true.
You made
okay?
your point.
Okay. Second point on why, the recommendation by the fire department, and I really respect Gary as a fire chief, but isn't it interesting that Kronos are they gonna be moving out within 2 years into a building that's 18 stories or 17 stories high? And the Lowell Fire Department doesn't have a problem in it because they have these things called standpipes. No building needs to be limited by the height of the ladder truck. Okay, we have them all over Boston, and they can reach the top floor. I'm sorry, Ann, if I'm annoying you.
Oh, well, actually, you are
I can see
annoying
it.
me,
I
but
can
that's
see it in
okay.
your face, but this is nothing new because you and I have always
You know,
annoyed each other.
One minute you're talking about it's all about the money. Next minute you're talking about Chief Ryan.
Okay.
And it's okay for a high rise. So
No, I'm just saying that I don't know if it's accurate. Okay?
you're questioning Chief Ryan's knowledge now.
No, I'm not questioning his knowledge. So, how many points outside of why, what are the other points that are gonna be? Because I'm gonna come up for every single one of them.
Which is understandable, Bob, and that's
Okay.
that's how it should be handled.
Okay.
So can I address
The
your?
why is also because the Economic Development Committee is made up of realtors, and that's why as well. That's why we're here. If it ain't broke, you don't have to fix it,
So
and I'll be back.
I'd just like to make one comment. Chief Ryan submitted a letter saying that at 75 feet, he's capable of handling with the manpower that he has.
Right.
If we go higher than that, then he needs additional manpower. And I didn't think, the planning board didn't think that we don't want to get into the budget part of having to add additional firemen, getting into that discussion with the town. So that's why we've pulled it back to 75 feet, and basically because of manpower. Lowell has much more fire stations, you brought up Lowell, than we do. So it's about manpower, and I know we have mutual aid, but it's about taking care of your town too, and we just don't have the manpower for it, and that's why we went to 75 feet and tried to limit that. So hopefully that helps answer your question.
It's also 75 feet by right. By special permit, they can go higher.
And might also note, if you read that carefully, 75 feet isn't always 75 feet.
Right.
That 75 feet in there corresponds roughly to 85 or 90 feet, the way we had typically defined these things.
A lot of the builders aren't
Yeah.
gonna wanna build over 75 feet because the building codes change dramatically when you
Right.
go over 75 feet.
So there are
It's just
lots
more
of
expensive.
considerations.
Lot of issues with it.
But if they do, there's always a special permit, at which point the fire company then again gets to
To weigh in,
comment
yeah.
and weigh in on whether it's something that's supportable.
Anybody else with questions for why? Please come up one at a time, and we need your name, your address.
Good evening. My name is Chris Bowman. I live at 3 Julio Street, and I'm also a precinct 4 rep, town rep.
Thank
I have a lot of problems with the specifics of this proposal, and I have a problem with the concept of this proposal. There were a number of newspaper articles talking specifically about this proposal and what the Economic Development Committee felt was necessary, especially in light of Kronos leaving Chelmsford. By reading there were several articles in the Lowell papers about this, and in reading all of them, the town focused on lack of amenities here in Chelmsford in order to keep businesses, not only to attract them here, but to retain them here over time. However, in reading all these articles, it became clear that the reason Kronos is leaving is not really because of amenities. It's because it wants to house all of its people in one structure, and that requires 400,000 square feet to do that. You need a city to do that. Chelmsford is a residential community. This concept is not consistent with the residential community. Now, 30 years ago, businesses within 128 approached this concern about amenities in attracting businesses and keeping them, attracting highly educated and skilled people by providing amenities within a development. So a developer like Flatley, for instance, would have several buildings. And one building would have a gym, it would have laundry services, it had childcare, it had a cafeteria. So all the people in that specific development could easily walk, or they could take their car and go and participate in these areas. So it seems to me that this concept of what you're proposing is not consistent with what you're saying you want. Now, Chelmsford's strength is that it's a residential community. People come here because of that. Businesses come here because of that, because it's not congested, it's not a city, it's not hard to get around. And if people, just like we did 30 years ago, could either brown bag their lunches, or they could go to a cafe, or they could go to fast food. It's not going to take that long to do. There aren't any really high-quality Boston restaurants in this area. There are upper restaurants in this area, but not Boston-like restaurants in this area. So what I propose is another concept that I think and believe is what you're after, and keeping Chelmsford residential community in mind while doing it. First, there are a number of vacancies in the buildings up on Elizabeth Drive. They've been there for years. Those buildings could be converted. A lot of was stated about converting buildings for restaurants or gyms or childcare or whatever. That should be the first target, is go for the structures that already exist instead of just leaving them empty. Next is to really have a vision of a business campus or business village. So instead of lining up businesses along the road, and I'm sorry, what is being proposed is going to degrade to Drum Hill. And the increase in traffic, and the trees will be gone, it'll be a mess. So instead of that, in a business-like campus, you would have different businesses freestanding. That could be in a semicircle or different configuration, and in amongst them would be the gyms, would be the cafes, would be the laundry, would be the stuff that people usually have to do during the day. And it would be walkable. They wouldn't have to use their car. There wouldn't be any need for parking spaces for these different places because they are there to serve the village. So the parking lots would be there for the businesses. And in this way, you can do a lot with configuration. You can make it look nice, it can be residential looking, and the height of the buildings can stay low to accommodate a residential community. In doing this, I believe that people would want to come here, they'll pay a higher price to be here, and they will want to stay here. By building what everybody else has is not different than what everybody else has. So there's no real need to come here for something that they could get someplace else that may be a little more convenient. So the idea is to make Chelmsford attractive because of its strength as a residential community. In addition to that, so conceptually, I think this can be done. It's not a new concept. It's more than 30 years old. It has been done, it can be done, and I think it's more in line with Chelmsford as a residential community. Now, one thing those newspaper articles really focused on was increasing the tax rate, getting businesses in here to increase the tax rate, and that is called chasing revenue. That is something specifically that the 2010 master plan said this town should not do. And if this town does do that, then its residential character is going to be lost. So the idea is to have vision consistent with what Chelmsford is. Not doing what everybody else is doing. Not becoming what everybody else is becoming. And increasing the quality of life for the employees is nice. People should have a nice place to work. They don't want it to be all buildings. They don't want it to be all asphalt. They want to enjoy going to work. Well, we also want to enjoy living here as residents. So far, our quality of life has been decreased with all this industrial development in this area specifically, and with pressures from 40B housing specifically. So we would like the board to keep in mind that this town is a residential community, and develops of this development on this scale needs to be beyond just just putting buildings in here, putting buildings in there like a building block. You need a concept that's gonna last over time. What you're proposing may be adequate for 3 to 5 years, but after that, it won't be. You need something beyond that. You need to give people a reason to come here and who want to stay here. And to have any structure that's over 6 stories, I'm sorry, is ridiculous. This is a residential community. We don't need parking garages. We don't need 6-story buildings. Right now, as far as I know, the highest building height is 4 stories. There is no need for 6 stories. All that is doing is changing the character of the town to a non-residential community. That is not what this town is. Therefore, anything that is done should, industrial or not, should include the basis that Chelmsford was founded as a residential community. That is our strength. That is why people come here. That should be kept in mind, rather than what kind of money may or may not come into the town if you just pluck stuff here or there. So I ask you to look beyond the obvious and encompass a more holistic approach to the situation. By doing that, the money will come. If you go after the money straight off, it'll be for a short time frame. It'll be gone and we'll be back at the same place again. So I thank you for your time, and I thank you for your consideration. Thank you.
Thank you for your input. Mr. Aisback, looked like you were getting ready to make some comments.
I just wanted to comment that I thought that some of the vision that you put out there about what the area might look like was actually rather attractive. On the other hand, I do think that the bylaw, the proposed bylaw, the way it's drafted, goes fairly far in the direction of implementing that. Unfortunately, we can't buy all the land in there and redistribute the properties ourselves. We're just a planning board, and we're just a town. Other people have to do that. So the level of control that we would have is not perhaps what you might want if you wanted to just dictate what the whole thing would look like in one shot. What I would ask is there's a lot in what you said that would have to be might have to be reflected in some changes to that proposed bylaw, and I would ask you to go out and make those changes and present to us the changes that you have to the proposed bylaw, and we could take a look and see what it does. That's what we're all about.
Let me make this clear, that what you're looking at now is a rough draft. That's why we're here. And I would also say under the COID, we have been holding builders to a much higher level of landscaping and everything else. It's not going to be the normal development. So you can, anybody can come on up and make a comment.
Yeah, if you can queue up a couple of people at a time, so that way we can see what's...
Yeah, see what's ahead of us.
Dave McLaughlin, 51 Brentwood Road. I don't think the two speakers were specifically addressing the whys. I'm not going to address the whys either.
Then sit down, Dave.
I want to applaud the
wait till
planning
later.
board for bringing this proposed change in the bylaw, zoning bylaw, forward and for having discussions on it. I think it's very appropriate. Some of you will recall that I was on the master plan committee in 2010, and the language in this proposed zoning change is fairly similar to what we had discussed back in 2010, and frankly, not much has changed in those 6 years. So it's very appropriate that you are looking at it again.
Unfortunately, I have to interrupt you. You're supposed to take and tell us who you are and where you live.
I did.
He did.
Did? I'm sorry.
I got it.
Dave McLaughlin, 51 Brentwood Road. I'd remind all of us that the commercial base in Chelmsford is around 18%. Residential is around 72%. The commercial base has been as high, I believe, as 23% in the past. If you run the numbers, the difference between 18% and 23% generates, and contrary to what the other two speakers said, it generates a lot of revenue. And that revenue makes a big difference to what this town could be. There's no question that this town does lack revenue to bring the services to its residents that they want, whether it's daycare, whether it was a new fire station, whether it's completing a DPW facility. But it's important that we create valuable commercial property without increasing the amount of commercial space in the town. And that's why the phrase or the term redevelopment is most appropriate. What we need to talk about is redeveloping what we currently have, not creating more acres of land for commercial development. And there's plenty of opportunity to do that. I'd remind all of us that there are a number of examples where this town has currently done it. We did it with the new Stop and Shop. We did it with the new Jeanne d'Arc building. We did it replacing Stop and Shop with Adiamo and the fitness center and what else is going in there. We did it at Drum Hill, replacing the Sears building with Auto Fair. We did it across from St. Mary with two buildings, an office building directly across from them, and now the new funeral home that's going up on the corner. That, and finally, the best one, I think, that's a good, solid example is what happened at where Skips was with the 110 Grill. And if you look at the numbers, and I know people don't like to look at revenue numbers, it's a bad word, but the difference in assessed value between what Skips was and what that facility is today is about threefold, I think. And that's a significant difference that gives the town extra revenue. I do think it's important to limit commercial activity to the existing geographical areas, and that's what this does. I think that, as I said, the proposal is very consistent with the 210 Master Plan Committee. But, I think this area does need to offer amenities, and this proposed bylaw change, in fact, does do that. It should create a new, vibrant area which will not compete with the other businesses in town. In fact, I think the other businesses in town will benefit from any improvement in the Route 129 area. And to be a little more crass than perhaps I have been all evening, some of the complaints about this project is the dislocation of some residential homes in that area. I would suggest that is a concern. But if this project or if this change in the bylaw is successful, those properties will be of significant value. I do have some concerns about the proposal. I think that this proposed change should be commercial only, and there should be no multifamily development in the area. We do have a large multifamily building going up at the junction of Billerica Road and at Mill Road. We've got two other large 40B projects on the drawing board David Edison has just announced he's got new funding for the second and last phase of his complex out on Littleton Road. What I think we're talking about is redevelopment of a commercial area, not total mixed use. I suggest that there be more green space be required, particularly if you allow buildings to go up, because the massive size of large buildings can detract from the environment significantly, and if you have a smaller footprint and a bigger green area, it will add to the attractiveness. I do also think we should limit how much hotel and motel and/or extended care facilities we have in the area. The area is relatively small, although it seems large to us, and I don't think 3 or 4 hotels or motels would be appropriate. I'm a little surprised that we include McFarland and Monument Streets in this zoning concept. I don't know if they're already zoned commercial or if they're zoned residential. But but the fact that those 2 residential streets are in this area, I think, is inconsistent with trying to limit this commercial redevelopment to the area between Billerica Road and Riverneck Road. And of course, it may go without saying that a significant amount of effort is going to have to be spent on understanding the traffic flow. The one thing that is unique about this site is that half of the traffic will come in and go out from Route 3, not 100%. So thank you very much.
David Rand, 167 Dunstable Road, North Chelmsford. Precinct 2 rep, and I'm concerned about the water. I haven't been able to water my garden. I know that part of the reason is that the center ran out of water before we did, and it has well fields and probably lowered our water table down to there.
Actually, I think the water district had something set up at the farmer's market. And I was actually talking to him about that, and he said it was mandated by the state when the governor took and declared a water emergency in our area, that all towns and all areas had to start restricting water flow. That's why that has come about. I actually asked the water district that question when I saw them on Thursday, and they will be there again this next Thursday, but it's underneath the governor's decree, and that's why.
Well, we should have a moratorium on 40B or any more development until we can have enough water to maintain our suburban community here. It's really strange. I can't believe
it came. Well, trust me, I know about low water this year. My ponds are at the bottom, but that came with the governor's decree of.
So what
restricting the
what
water
I
came
think
from
we
the
need to do
State House.
is offer incentives to these people that can't rent their properties to bulldoze them and plant trees, just like they showed in the Olympics. We plant more trees, we're going to have more water. We're going to have a much healthier environment here.
Oh, trust me, I'd love to see more farming, but
Yeah,
it's not.
exactly.
It is what it is. It's.
Well, if you don't have water, I don't understand how we can have any development here.
Right.
And the governor would take notice if we restricted the 40B and anything else.
It was a very interesting talk. If you have time on Thursday afternoon, I believe they will be back there again. You can go up, and the water district has been there to answer questions and to.
Oh, I talk to Bob all the time, Bob Delaney. So.
Yeah. All right.
Good evening. My name is Brian Chason, and I'm not a resident of Chelmsford. I'm actually a resident of Situate, Massachusetts, but I am the owner of Anchor Line Partners, and we are the owners of Crosspoint and Lowell.
Yep.
I've had the pleasure of owning property here, commercial property here in Chelmsford, 1 and 2 Executive Drive, and have always had a collaborative, business relationship with the town. I do have the opportunity, potentially, to acquire some of the commercial base on Route 129 in the near future. As the owner of Crosspoint, we are the beneficiaries of Kronos's relocation. And I can speak specifically, having been intimately involved in that negotiation with Aaron and the CEO and the heads of Kronos about their decision to relocate up the street to Lowell. And I think by way of example, I would say that had it, the lady was right. A big factor was the ability to house everyone under one roof. But I could say it was with a lot of angst in my conversations with Aaron of his decision to relocate. A big component of that decision was really placed to the employee base as well. And an overwhelming response was the positive impact that the investment that we made at Crosspoint as a driving decision factor. That investment was primarily in the amenity base. And having 26 years of experience of owning commercial real estate on the 128 and Route 3 corridor, Evan is correct. All the studies that you've done in the benefit of this initiative are correct. The trends that exist in the commercial real estate base are real. It is about money, but it's more importantly, it's about relevance and competitiveness. And the fact of the matter is, you are at your peak still on vacancy, and unfortunately, I think if you are not proactive, it's going to continue to drive down. As I evaluate opportunities here in Chelmsford, there's an overwhelming benefit to your location on Route 129, and that is the amount of traffic that comes down from southern New Hampshire. Unfortunately, they drive right by. And it's a shame, because the predominant amount of traffic comes right out of southern New Hampshire. And they have to go down into the traffic and congestion down into the 128 connection. And they go down there because of the amenities. The working environment has completely changed. I owned real estate up here in the 80s and in the 90s, and it was a wholly different market, wholly different dynamic. It's about recruitment, it's about collaboration, and it's about a sense of place. Now, I won't speak at all to the residential component of the overlay. I'm not in the residential business, and I realize the impacts that that has on the town. But from a commercial standpoint, I would offer to you that it's either you evolve or you die on the vine. And the evolution of commercial real estate is a place for people to go. They spend so much of their time in this environment, and it's more about the working style of today's employee. It's no longer, go to your job and, forgive me, but brown bagging it. It's a collaborative spirit that exists between companies having a place, a sense of place. And I commend you for undertaking this study in order to engage that dynamic. Because I do fear, without that engagement, unfortunately, the trends will continue to be negative and the valuations will fall. And that is about money from the basis of the town. So yes, as a developer, I'm motivated to make good deals. But I know that if I'm buying this, there's all kinds of examples along the 495 corridor where it's obsolete. Companies will not consider going there. And it's not heavy lifting. Although obviously this is heavy lifting, right? But the ability to incorporate what the worker wants and needs in today's working environment is critical to successful development. You already have all the infrastructure, you've got all the improvements. The ability to accommodate what the worker wants will have dramatic impact on the success of this region. And you only have to look up the street or down the street to areas that have, in fact, gravitated toward that reality and the success that they're having. So I wish you luck with this. I think you're taking all the right steps, and I commend you for the effort. Thank you.
Can you just describe the amenities that you put into Crosspoint over the last year or two?
Sure. We spent a significant amount of capital to improve the amenity base. We completely expanded the daycare facility from a kind of a decrepit 5,000, 6,000 square foot area to a 14,000 square foot facility for Little Sprouts. We introduced a new gym. It was more of an activity area, which includes gaming elements, pool tables, ping pong tables, golf simulators, and naturally a gym. And then we enhanced the cafeteria dramatically, brought in a lot of natural light, opened up the walls. Most impactful, I think, is the introduction of the Tavern in the Square, which is just off to a roaring start. Completely changed the dynamic of the location. And if not for that investment, and we did it in a manner in which it was all in a central area where the folks that were working in the towers come down and they collaborate, create a lot of common areas where people could mix and mingle and get away from the desk. And, you know, those efforts didn't go lost. It wasn't just Kronos. We've had success at even attracting people to come down out of southern New Hampshire. So it's a, you know, those types of elements are just, if you don't do it in the suburban environment today, you're gonna fade.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming. I
thank you
appreciate
for
your
time.
comments.
Thank you.
Hi there, my name is Alexander Melville from 6 Monmouth Road, just right there at the top of the map. And I just recently moved here about a year ago. So I just wanted to say that love the town so far. I definitely did move here because it's a residential town. So I think keeping that aspect is important to me and my family as well as others. Can't speak about other people, sorry. Anyway, I enjoy that and I'd like to see it keeping that way. We all raised some good points, specifically why are we looking at the multi-housing aspect and other industrial as opposed to just the commercial aspect. So this is the why part of the questions, and that was one of it. I don't know much of the jargon, so I don't really understand it, so break it down for me. Are we looking to build more like restaurants and GameStops and, I don't know, restaurants and, I don't know, commercial aspects like that, or are we looking for more business vacancies stuff?
Do you want to handle this?
Yeah, I'll work on that one a little bit. The objective here, a large part of the objective is what we call business amenities. That is to support businesses. Remember, this is not a commercial area. This is industrial. It's an IA zone.
Right.
Although, you know, the question about why the residential area up there at Monmouth is included in it, that goes way back in history, and that probably needs to be looked at carefully. That's not part of this activity, but it would be an activity that should be undertaken, I think. But the idea is to provide that amount of commercial activity which would support the business that operates within this zone.
So we're not looking to put more of these office spaces in place. We're looking to support these office.
No, well, it might well involve more office spaces, but it would also involve businesses to support that. And there are particular kinds of commercial businesses that do, and some that don't. I mean, we're not so keen on adding a large, a Walmart or big box store. That's not a business amenity. And if you look at the way the bylaw is drafted, I think we do a pretty good job of teasing apart those commercial activities which would support business from those that might not. Again, I'd ask you to take a good look at that draft, and if you have some suggestions about what might be changed or adapted, we'll certainly want to hear it.
Sure.
Yep.
Everyone's pointing at you.
Yeah, long and short of it, prime example is Tavern on the Square at Cross Point, dry cleaners, daycares, all these things that aren't allowed now in the industrial district. It would open that up to those types of businesses. Ideally, what would be perfect, what I would envision, if it could happen, is exactly what Tavern on the Square did. It went on the first floor of a commercial building. So, for instance, you take the building Kronos is moving out. You know, that front first floor section, if they could put a restaurant in there and then have the offices in the back, or a gym in there, or something like that, you know, workers after work could go visit, or during work they go down to the gym, you know, they work out for half an hour, take a shower, and, you know, go back up to their office. Those are the types of things that I think that we have envisioned. So that's, and then, you know, could there be a freestanding restaurant? It could, but I think the things that we're trying to envision is try to get those within a distance of building that's a commercial building, to help with those employees that after work, if they want to go get together and go have a beer or something to eat, that type of thing. So.
Okay, great. Thank you for answering that. A few other points is, so the hotels and parking structures and all that stuff, that's all part and parcel of the same zoning that we're trying to overlay? So it's not like you're picking and choosing here, it's...
All right. Nan was going to give you a comment back, and then Mike can come after
Yeah,
her.
I did have a couple comments. So one thing that I've heard here is you're adding a lot of buildings, and, you know, just for clarification, this area is pretty well built out. So it's not a matter of putting up more buildings. It's a matter of improving, replacing, redeveloping the buildings the sites that are already there. So we have a number of situations in this area that are very underutilized lots with one-story buildings that have limited occupancy, and we're looking to encourage development and investment, private investment that would go in and redevelop these sites for better utilization. Now, one of the things that the CEIOD does, that is why we called it into this zoning effort, is that it expands the use of green spaces and the requirements on green spaces. It minimizes the paved areas. But in order to get better utilization of buildings, more utilization of buildings, you have to put cars someplace. So that's the key to incorporating parking garages under buildings, is to get them off of the lay of the land and get more of that land used for vegetation and walking space and community space. One of the things I've heard both from the audience and from the board up here is the use of the term, this is a commercial area. Well, this isn't a commercial area, it's an industrial area. And we need to be really careful how we refer to that. We're not changing this into a commercial area. It will remain an industrial area as its prime use. What we are doing is allowing a percentage of those industrial spaces to be used for commercial purposes as amenities, as complements to the industrial use. So office spaces are industrial, product development spaces are industrial, things like that. Those are what's there now and what's encouraged and zoned to be there. But we're encouraging the incorporation of maybe a hotel, of restaurants, of dry cleaners, maybe a bank. It's things that are typically needed by the people who work in an industrial area. So if we're going to encourage investors to put their money into creating buildings that give better industrial utilization, higher scale industrial utilization, that brings good jobs to town, then the only way they can attract tenants is for their tenants to be able to attract employees. And that's the key to why the amenities are a piece of this zoning.
Thank you all for explaining a little bit more into the why. My final comments would just be that I still don't think that the housing or hotels is in line with the vision that you are setting out to do. Just wanted to mirror some other opinions there. So thank you again.
I might speak briefly to the hotels.
Yep.
I think it's important to note here that the nature of a hotel in this zone is going to require a lot of very special permitting, and that one of the things that we attempted to do in this bylaw, and it's reflected in the preface, in the beginning of it, is to make it clear that we're under no obligation to give person B a hotel just because person A already got it. One of the things we're trying to control is the amount of such stuff. So we might get one, but we're not going to get four, or at least not with any members of the planning board that I know of sitting on the board. We're trying to control that to allow the possibility, because we are told that that is an amenity that makes some substantial difference to some businesses, without, turning it into a park full of nothing but hotels and motels. That is not our intent, and I believe the bylaw that the draft that we're presenting allows us to control that.
You almost answered one of my questions.
Why, thank you.
Pam Armstrong, C6 Scotty Hollow, and Precinct 3 Town Meeting Rep. And I do have some why questions. Why can we not change the lines to take the area of Vincent and the housing that's down in that corner out of this overlay? Why does that have to be a straight line? Why can't we?
Well, we could take it out of the,
We certainly can.
Yeah, we can do that.
And the reason I say that, and there was a good point brought up, that yes, if you're within the zoning, you might get a huge amount of money for your house, but the guy outside the zoning just lost money for his. So I would love to leave the neighborhoods
What streets were those?
as neighborhoods. And, that Monmouth Street and McFarland, if we can change the lines and preserve the neighborhoods, I think that would be a nice thing to do. You were talking about controlling. Can you do that? Can you?
Yes.
So you can say we can only have so much percent of banks, so much percent of hotels. And I guess I'm going to ask a different question before you answer that one. There's a number of developments in the area that have gone up. So I'm going to talk about a couple of them. It has a lot of nice high-end restaurants. They have a bowling alley, King's Bowling Alley, and then they have the industrial around the outside. You can look at the new development in Littleton that just went up that has the Marriott, the grocery store, but a lot of vacant space and very small, low-end stores and no big restaurants or anything have moved there. You've got, like you mentioned, Marketplace in Linfield, which is very high-end, but it's mostly retail, beautiful stores, beautiful restaurants, but there's really no amenities. It's a retail, and it's a destination place. And then you got Woburns Cumming Park, which has a lot of businesses with retail on the first floor and all the things you're talking about built in. I'm wondering what vision of all those examples is the vision that Chelmsford's looking at?
I would have to say the things that we're envisioning are more on the order of garages under, commercial first floor, and then industrial office and whatever space above, maintaining as much green space as possible.
So that would
But
be more
remember
like
that.
Woburn Cummings Park is what you're looking at?
Probably. More like that.
So out of all the things that I mentioned, that would be the one I like the least.
I don't know Cummings Park.
But I
so-
also.
I'll answer your question.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay? And hear me out before everyone goes, oh. You talk about Burlington. There was multiple buildings there that came down.
Yeah.
If we could do 20% of what's there,
Yeah.
I'd be happy.
Yep.
Because it's become a destination place. It's become a spot where people after work can go get groceries and food and go bowling and go out shopping and, that type of thing. But not to that scale. That scale's huge.
That's huge.
They had a lot of buildings there.
Right.
And, but if you could do 20% of that here, or 15% of that, we're done with this. We're done with the overlay. We're there.
I think that's the progression of moving forward. I think Cummings Park is what was, and something like Burlington is what
I'd have to agree with
is.
you, because even Cummings Park was even involved in that.
It's changing.
Yeah,
Right.
it's changing, but there's a lot of hot top. I mean,
Yeah.
Cummins Properties used to sign checks when I worked where the King's Bowling is and
Yep.
stuff. There was buildings I worked in there. They own part of that.
Yep.
They're doing the upgrades to buildings as they're going along, and that Woburn area is all hot top, and it would never get by the COID here.
Right. So that's,
Burlington is an example of the buildings that were built in Burlington were similar to the buildings that were built around here about the same time. And
you're talking about like the Sun Micro
Second
System
Ave,
campus?
no, not the campus, Second Ave, and the
Okay.
buildings that used to exist there.
Yeah.
Okay?
Old
Or
Maycom
the-
buildings
The old
Yep.
Computer Vision, the old Maycom
Yep.
buildings. They became, they were that 1970s or 60s, 70s, 80s, early 80s, one-story or two-story buildings and they became obsolete. Those buildings were built, even here in Chelmsford, when I was on the master plan, we looked at them. They're built for one tenant. They were built, back then, a computer room had to be this size. Now, it just needs to be this size, So they were built in such a way that they can't be, or it's difficult for them to be split into multi-tenant use because of water meters and gas meters and the way they were laid out for utilities and that type of thing. So, we have to look at those buildings. They're obsolete. How do you revamp it?
Right.
And I'm just gonna quote and I think I get the numbers right. After Kronos leaves and Mercury leaves, we're gonna have 1.1 million square feet of vacant space in Chelmsford. If the vacant space that exists now, which I think is 600,000
Yeah,
roughly.
675, I think.
Okay, so we have to plan for the future. If that 1.1 million is empty, sometimes it continues to grow. It just doesn't turn around overnight. So that's the challenge that this board has. I think the challenge is to say, how do we keep those buildings full? Keep them active, keep them alive.
I think what
not
you're
to generate
doing
revenue.
is the right thing. I just hope that you're looking forward into what the newer complexes that are going in are versus what the older ones going out are. And if you can control that in some way, that we don't end up with a Cummings Park that in 10 years from now, we're doing this all over again because we were behind the curve, that we need to look ahead of the curve in what we're going to do and try to control the type of things that go in that is more upscale than.
So to answer your question, I think part of the thing that I'm struggling with and why it's in here is the multifamily version of this, because now there's parks being developed where I think there's one in Burlington now where they've developed commercial buildings in the front, and in the back they're doing residential, high-end residential to help feed those commercial.
That's what they did in
So
Linfield at
that's the
Marketplace.
balance that we have, and that we're.
But the
we're
problem
looking at.
is, here, you've got a lot of residential neighborhoods that abut that. In Linfield, there's really not residential neighborhoods behind it.
That's why we've created the exclusionary zone to act as a buffer, where the exclusionary zone, you can't do the bowling alley, you can't do the bank, you can't do the restaurant. You could do a multifamily situation.
Yeah, but I'm not sure that because multifamilies are high rises. They make them as tall as they can, abutting the residential. I kind of agree that multifamily might not be the right thing, and you got to be careful with your hotels because you just put in the extended stay in Westford and you got the Marriott in Linfield. I'm not sure that we might be behind the curve for having a hotel. They're too close to us. They're not going to put in another one. Maybe they will.
I hope whoever comes up with the hotel has done their due diligence and
Yeah, and
feels
has
that
the money.
it's necessary to have it.
Now, my next question is, are you thinking that someone's going to come in and bulldoze a whole area, buy a bunch of buildings, take it down, and build like a marketplace?
We don't know. We can hope in some cases. We know that there are some large buildings up in there, up on top of Elizabeth, that suffer from exactly the problem that George brought up. They are, although they look nice and neat from the outside, they're simply not suitable to be split up for multiple tenants, and they would probably have to go.
Pam, I think the bylaw provides the market opportunity.
Yeah.
It doesn't define the future. So all of the examples, Marketplace, Waltham, Burlington, Westwood, All those examples would be legally permissible for someone to propose with lots of special permits. So that's the beauty of the bylaw. It doesn't define the future, it doesn't restrict the future. It doesn't define whether there is a hotel marketplace or not. It allows the opportunity. Right now, hotels are allowed by special permit.
Yeah.
This bylaw would make that a by right use rather than a special permit to try to incentivize it. The multifamily component, again, it's an example of you can't predict the future. If the town's vision is to attract, let's say, a marketplace Linfield where you have high-end restaurants and retail, those businesses and developers who build high-end are going to want residential in place to support them after the office park empties out at the end of the day. So housing, the EDC clearly heard that housing from the developer's perspective is a key component, in addition, and probably more importantly, a key component for businesses, corporate relocations, young professionals who have finally decided to leave the urban environment, settle in a suburban community but don't want to own a home or don't know what neighborhood in Chelmsford to choose, so they want to rent. They want to be in a urban environment. So you can see how the vision, if it all comes together, is complementary. As I said, the bylaw provides the opportunity for the vision and gives the planning board significant discretion within the purpose and intent.
Now, why are you limiting the multifamily area to be just abutting the residential?
It's not. It's allowed within the entire overlay, right?
In the whole overlay,
the theory for the exclusion zone was to allow multifamily to serve as a logical transition, a buffer zone from single family to industrial. So currently that industrial, the red area, is zoned for industrial, 4-story office buildings or high-rise flex industrial space. The thought was that that multifamily could be, if it's well-designed, architecture and height and so forth, could be a better alternative to the existing industrial uses that are there. Again, all by special permit.
The only other comment I would have is I think that the gateway into Chelmsford on 129 is absolutely beautiful, and it really gives you a nice feel of what our character of our town is and the residential aspect of our town. And I would hate to see these buildings look like Cummings Park, like these parking lots and high-rise and stuff like all along the entranceway. So I hope we give special attention to try to keep as much green in that entrance as we can and keep everything behind that.
That's kind of part of the reason why, we talk about parking structures. I don't know if anybody's ever been to Lowell General up in Drum Hill. There's a parking garage there.
Yeah.
And on the side of the parking garage is vines growing up and is bushes in front of it.
Yep.
When that happened, this board put a lot of time and effort to make sure that it was screened, it was, landscaping, and you know how much in the past we've gone through it. That hasn't changed much. So I think I'll speak for the rest of the board because I think this is a no-brainer. Yeah, we agree.
Yeah.
We absolutely agree that there should be green space and trees and that type of thing.
Have the entrance, the entrance into Chelmsford still look beautiful.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely agree.
Those are my questions. Thank you very much.
Thanks. I think I went off the limb on that one.
Hi, Anita Tonini, 8 Columbus Ave. I'm also a Precinct 4 rep, and I sit on Finance Committee. I'm speaking to you as a homeowner. I've been a homeowner for 20 years in Chelmsford. I want to thank you for taking this initiative and doing this. I know this has been hard, and you've gone through quite a bit. I appreciate all the hard work that's gone into this. And as someone mentioned, it's all about the money. It is about the money, but not just the town's revenue. It's about us homeowners in Chelmsford. Because what concerns me is if we don't do something, what happens to this space? People think that, oh, we don't change anything, Chelmsford stays the same. The world does not stay the same. This puts control in our hands as citizens of this town to help us stay relevant. Not doing anything scares me. What happens to those buildings? Who do we get in? Who redevelops them? Then where are we? What happens to my property value? Putting in office space, bringing businesses here, high-end, high-paying jobs, turns around and puts a demand for our homes. This is my biggest investment. I don't want to see it deteriorate. What also scares me is that how quickly are our home prices going up in Chelmsford versus Burlington? I also commute 45 minutes now into Waltham. I've been commuting most of my career into Boston. My commute to Boston, if I want a job, is now over an hour and a half. That is not a work-life balance. I've tried to bring companies here. I work in the startup world. I always am an advocate, bring them closer. I can get them to Burlington, can't get them further up. There's a lot that we can offer here. I do have concerns, but I do see the potential. And change, as we all know, is scary because no one likes change. But the world is always changing, and not doing something could be worse. So thank you. One comment, and I agree with some of the folks here, I do think you need to reevaluate the McFarland and Mammoth area, just from an entranceway and an exit. They're not coming off of 129, they're going through neighborhoods. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, yes, Sean Campbell, 19 Monmouth Street. Thank you for the opportunity to speak and for mailing me the letter. I've lived here for 31 years. I'm 31 years old.
That was great.
I've been at Monmouth Street for a long time. Certainly, I've definitely seen a lot of changes in the 129 area. I can't say that they're all bad. They're all good. You take the good and the bad. McFarland and Monmouth are dead-end streets, so we are near the industrial, but we're not, seeing the traffic. And certainly you guys have a big task ahead of you trying to keep up with innovation, with what the other towns are doing. So, I'm not going to tell you how to do that. But I did have one small request. And if you look at McFarland or you look at Monmouth, I understand why we are IA. We are in it. We are right there. And there used to be more streets like us, and then they, kind of pushed the houses down and put more buildings. But there's one issue with my property is that I'm just cut out. I'm not in the zoning. I'm abutting. I'm the only property on Monmouth Street that is not in the zoning, and I think that I'm just as close as anybody else, and I'm definitely right there in the action. And if someday down the line a developer does want to come in and he wants to do something in that area, I think that I should be a part of that, because I seen that happen. I think it was maybe like 15 years ago or maybe 10 years ago, something like that was talked about on Monmouth Street. So that would be a request that I would ask the planning board to consider from 19 Monmouth Street, which is the house right.
Just for the board's clarification, 19 Monmouth Street split zoned. The right side of the property is in the IA and the left side's in residential.
It's listed as residential on the assessors.
So when I drew up the black outline, I didn't exercise any discretion. I included the entire IA.
Okay.
And then obviously it's the board's discretion through public comment whether you're going to, remove properties from the overlay. Keep in mind that they're still zoned, the underlying zoning's industrial.
I would be in favor of just including that in the exclusion zone. I'll speak right now for it. I mean, there's enough people that made a serious case on that, so.
You have the three streets, McFarland, Monmouth, and Vincent. Or
those are
that downside of Mill Road.
Yeah.
They're primarily residential?
Yeah.
So I'll go on the record that I think that we should include that in the exclusion zone.
Yeah, I'd say that makes sense. It actually sounds to me as if we need in a separate action, not this one.
No, put it on
To action, no, we can do it here.
Oh, yeah.
That I am not saying don't do that.
All right.
What I am saying is that in a separate action, we should probably simply consider changing that whole removing a couple of pieces from that IA zone entirely.
Oh,
That's a different action. It's not for
Is that what
tonight,
he
but it's
actually
something that we ought to be,
Now,
it's something we ought to consider.
I think,
In or out?
I do want to be in, and I think a number of years ago, it was the distance between the Apollo building and the Monmouth Street, which they said, if you read the zoning, that it's so close that they had to put it IA. So it wasn't a mistake that they changed residential. It was, they said, this building is literally like abutting residential, so they had to build that building. I think it was in 1990. They had to change those zoning. So I would like to be a part of the zoning overlay. And, you know, my property, I believe, was changed at one time. It used to be all IA, and then somehow, I think in the mid-90s, my father used to own it, and it had a split. And he's owned it since 1979. He worked for the town as well. He's a retired firefighter.
Okay.
Could I ask one question of you? If you could please take and put it in writing and submit it to the planning board too, with your address and everything else. It doesn't hurt to have it in record on file, or
Just send an email.
just send an email. Is fine.
Okay, yes. I did send an email, I believe, to Evan
All right.
on this.
Okay. Yeah, as long as we just have something.
I can send another.
That's fine.
Okay, I won't take any
We
more
don't
of your
kill.
time.
You don't kill too much ink with emails.
But we do have to print them.
So George, your recommendation on these 3 streets?
Just put it in the exclusion zone.
Yeah, to put them in the.
To put it in the red
Exclusion
zone.
zone, yeah.
We can discuss another day
Okay.
whether the underlying zoning's correct or incorrect.
Yeah.
but
Right.
Not for this
But
discussion.
put it in
not
the
for
red
tonight.
zone.
Thank you very
That's
much.
a, it's a reasonable
Yeah.
request.
You're right.
That's a reasonable request.
Good evening. My name is Nicole Giada. I'm resident of 66 Mill Road. I'm also a town meeting rep for Precinct 4. I'm here as a homeowner, not as a town meeting rep. I understand that some of the residents in my precinct will have issues of various kinds about how this will impact their communities. However, I just want to make a couple of observations. I've been hearing what's coming out is sort of an us versus them idea about this development, about the businesses, the industries that are in this area. I am a resident of Chelmsford specifically because of the businesses on 129. My husband was headhunted here from New York in the early 1990s. We had a choice. We could have chosen Westford. We could have chosen Chelmsford to live. We chose Chelmsford because he wanted to have a half-a-mile bike ride to work.
Yep.
And I want to really make it clear that a sensitive, intelligent redevelopment of this can help the community of Chelmsford. I've been sitting through the visioning meetings for the Chelmsford Public Schools. There is an anticipated turnover of housing in this town coming 10 years. If we can have something that will attract high-end businesses, we can attract young workers to the town, people who do not want to commute, who want to live and work in their community, who want to make that part of a vibrant community, then that would be a good thing for Chelmsford going forward, given the inevitable that's going to happen. The other observation I want to make, which actually is also, I think, illustrative of what's been going on here. Last year, my company I worked for last year, I'm no longer an employee there, we were looking to relocate. We needed almost 100,000 square feet of industrial space. We were in Acton. We looked from Marlborough all the way up the 495 corridor to North Andover. Chelmsford didn't even make the cut. There was nothing here that attracted us. And what were we looking for? We were looking for places where our workers on their lunch break could go out and have something to eat. We were looking for places that we would have a daycare close by. We were also looking for places where if people flew in, we could say, hey, there's a hotel just down the street, instead of having to book them into something near the airport. I was upset that Chelmsford wasn't even on the table. I ended up going to Marlborough because of the amenities that was offered, the space that was offered, and the sense that Marlborough wanted new businesses, the sense that they were actually developing and working towards a future for industry. So I just wanted to make that observation as well. Thank you very much for looking at this and understanding that this is a problem that's coming at us and that we can't just let it go. We have to be thoughtful about this. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Greg Clemmer. I work for Colliers Commercial. We're real estate brokers. My apologies. Our firm represents 300,000 feet of the 600 currently available and soon to be 1.1. I think that's an accurate number. We represent 300 and 330 Billerica Road and 220 Mill Road. I've been in the business for 30 years. I've seen markets go up and down probably 3 or 4 times. This is probably one of the strongest markets that I've seen in my career, 30 years. And every time it goes up, it starts in Boston, it goes to 128, then it goes to 495. So 495 is a laggard. When it goes down, 495 is first, then it goes 128, and then it goes closer to Boston. What's happening now in the best market with Boston as hot as it's ever been in life, one of the hottest places in the world right now, 128, very similar. This market, Route 129, is going the other way. It's 1 million feet vacant, and it could be more. We talked to another company today, not on 129, but in the area that's now looking at Burlington, and it's everything that Brian brought up earlier and other people have referenced. For really the first time, when I look for a job, somebody said I have a job in Haverhill, I'd get in a car or I'd ride my bike to Haverhill and I'd take a job. That's not happening today, so the companies are chasing their employees. So they're moving from Cambridge into Boston, Burlington into Boston, Burlington into Watertown, 495 to 128. And it's all about the amenities. It's all about everything that everybody, I don't need to repeat it, but it's retention, attraction, it's 100% that. We're seeing activity. There's great activity in the area. We have, as I said, 300,000 feet. We're up here, I've got 4 guys on my team. We show one of those 3 buildings at least 2 times a week, which is, in our world, that's great activity. One of them's been empty for 2 years. Another one is just recently is the building that Comcast moved out of. But what we're hearing time and time again is there's no amenities. So I can't stress it enough. It's 1 million feet, and I wouldn't be shocked if it goes higher because it's going to take a long time to fill it up. And while they're filling up, the other buildings, when the leases roll, they're doing the same thing. They're saying, I can't attract employees, because the guys I want to attract, who's coming out of Cambridge, who lives in Somerville, he's not driving up here. He's going to Burlington because you got 3rd Avenue and Kings and a bunch of bars. The comment I'd make about Market Street, 3rd Avenue, development in Marlborough, all those, the advantage they had is they're all owned by one guy. Cummings owns one big swath of, so in an ideal world, you would take all the properties and have a master plan, but you can't do it. You've got 50 different employees. But what I would say is I'm not a retail broker. I don't do stores. I don't do hotels. I don't do apartments. But I have talked to developers that do that. And I've had them up on this street and what they would look at. And just to allay the fears of a lot of people in the group here, not to disparage the wide swath of area that you have, but for the retail people that I've talked to, they don't want to get too far beyond the Kronos is the headquarters building that they own. They're not going to go very far down. They're not going to go to the log pile on 129. They're not going that far. They're not, they want to be right. What's that? Yeah. See, I even stay away from that.
It's a log pile. That's what people know it as. It's a pile of bark mulch.
Right.
Bark mulch, yes.
But they want to be much closer to Route 3 and 128. And the last thing I'll say is the location. Somebody else brought it up. you can't ask for a better location for somebody to come. Nobody wants to drive down Route 3 anymore. It's getting the traffic is getting so bad. But the reason that Brian's company did so well is, here's this big monster. Many owners have had it. They've put lipstick on it. Every time they bought it, they didn't change anything much. But what they did, you should go drive by it. They created an experience in this thing. And everybody doesn't want to move. Everybody wants to go to their kids' baseball game, so they don't go too far away. They can't go into Boston. But they're going to that place because it's affordable and it's got amenities that are over the top. So I'm not a resident. I am self-serving because I'd like to fill up the buildings. It's fun to drive up here, but if I'm not making any money, it's not that great. All right, it's not a bar to go to. So it's the biggest roadblock that you have is amenities. Oh, last thing I'd say is Houston has no zoning. And I said, how do you have no zoning in Houston? And they say the highest and best use. They just do it by highest and best use. So Dunkin' Donuts isn't going to go all the way to the other side of Turnpike Street. They're going to go right at Route 3. So just by definition, I don't think too many people should be worried about anything further than a half a mile from the intersection. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Just to close a loop, you've heard 600,000 square feet of existing vacant space, and some of the themes tonight were what's the vision. So part of the data that Economic Development Commission gathered came to the conclusion that there's a 10-year average of over 500,000 square feet of vacant space. So clearly, there's too much commercial, office, industrial square feet down there. You can't fill it. And with vacancy rates in our competing communities, Westford, Billerica, Tewksbury, we're never going to fill up all 500,000 or currently 600,000 square feet or even 1 million in April. So part of the theory behind the overlay is to convert 500,000 square feet that is historically vacant into business amenities. So it's not about increasing the 4.7 million square feet that's out there. It's about converting the underutilized square footage. 500,000 square feet of 4.7 is about 5%. So you can begin to see a scope and scale. 5% done intelligently, respectfully, would be complementary to the existing office park, would not convert into a Drum Hill or a Waltham type of urban environment. So that's the goal and kind of vision of the overlay, is to immediately address that historic elevated vacancy rate. That may take 5 to 10 years. And during such time, obviously the planning board and the community can keep track of the progress and make adjustments as needed.
Thanks, Pete.
Go ahead.
You know, it's been interesting tonight. A lot of people have come up and spoken. They've spoken in favor of, they've spoken against, but they've given us other ideas to consider, to bring into this, which is really what we were looking for. You know, what does the general public think? What are their ideas? And it's been a reasonable, I'm impressed that people have given it as much thought as they have. It obviously started out on a sour note, but that was to be expected. You know, the people that have stood before us with their comments, they've been spot on. You know, maybe there's a couple we disagree with or can't do, but it's been just, it's helpful to us as a board to hear what you have to say and to be able to incorporate some of what you have to say into the actual bylaw. And it's a pleasure. I will tell you, it's a pleasure.
Hi, my name is Sung Woo Kim, and I recently moved into Chelmsford this year. So, actually, first, the address 36 Monmouth Street. It seems like we have quite a lot of people from Monmouth. I'm one of them. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak in front of you guys. But I have a question. I don't quite understand the consequences of not going on, not approving for the overlay. As in, so we have some of these businesses moving out. Kronos, you mentioned. I guess they bring in certain number of revenue to the town, and because they're moving, I imagine there's some kind of shortfall. I don't know what that is, 100 million, 500 million, or 1 billion, I don't know. But considering you guys are the planning board of the future, with them moving out, and if we don't vote this in place, don't vote in favor of this overlay, is there some kind of plan to cut spending in like education or? I have as much commitment to this town because I plan to stay here as long as possible.
Unfortunately, that's not our decision. We're only that there were as a board of selectmen that handle the money issues.
A couple of them sitting over there.
Yeah, and there are there's different boards that have to handle different issues as they come up. Chelmsford will exist no matter what, but it all depends on how and the vision of it. No, that's all we're trying to do is plan for we're trying to do a plan for the.
Oh, okay.
But we don't handle the money aspect of it.
Oh, so there's no one in this community.
We don't even get a paycheck.
Wow, really? Don't even get a picture.
So let me help.
Wow, that's true.
What I'd like to expand on what you just said, and that is, if Kronos moves out and a building goes vacant, the way the buildings are assessed are based on occupancy and revenue. If it's a rent, what's the square footage cost? If a building's empty and they can't rent it and the square footage costs go down, your revenue, your tax base goes down, your revenue goes down. So now the town has to find that money someplace else.
Right.
If you keep the spaces occupied and you increase the rents, then the commercial taxes collected will go up. So, and you hope that the residential taxes would come down. And I think there was a speaker previous that said that it's 18% of our tax base. Is it 18%?
19.6, I believe.
19. They're about 19.6 of our tax base is commercial based. If you can get that up just 3 points, I don't know the exact number, but 3% is quite a bit. 4% is quite a bit, and it will just help offset some of those residential taxes. So it's really incumbent on the town to try to keep as much space occupied commercially or industrial wise, and it would just benefit in the long run, And the other part too is that industrial and commercial buildings, they don't require trash pickup. They don't have kids in the school. Their money that's collected from the tax goes directly to the town side, and we don't have to spend for trash pickup. It helps offset the cost for schools and that type of thing. So the more revenue you collect commercially, the better it is, because they don't require the trash pickup that we do residentially. And residential houses have children that go to school. So I think it's about $10,000 or $11,000 per student from the school side. So if your taxes are $8,000, you have one child, you're running a deficit to cover your child. So that's going to get made up someplace else. And there's some finance committee members here. If my numbers are off, please correct me. But I think I'm pretty.
You have the general gist of it, George.
So, it behooves us to try to keep that space occupied.
Right, thank you.
Oh, crap.
Hi, I'm Mike Cooney, I live in Stonegate Road. Andrew, can you put up the map again? Just wanted if you give me some key pros and cons of people living in the red zone. Was it good to live in the red zone, or would it not be good to live in the red zone?
Well,
what does the red zone mean to me as a resident?
As a resident, we no more commercial development under this overlay in that area, so it's not like you're gonna have another business going in there.
That doesn't change the.
It doesn't change the
Stay
underlining
the same.
stuff that is.
Nothing new.
Nothing really, nothing changes, but if they come underneath with this, which tries to give us a clearer path, to get them in through, we do the COID, we give them an answer in 90 days type of thing. We're pushing to take and allow, and I had a problem, I've been on the fence about this the whole time. And then I drove out there one day and I took a look at it. There is a development there if you're coming from Chelmsford Center heading out towards 3 on the left-hand side there. There's not going to be a lot of area in there that you can really develop.
This is resident.
And if you get down towards the end there where it looks like there's high tension lines in the back there, and it's just, the space isn't there. I don't see a lot of development on that area. I'm pretty sure we're trying to keep this as a buffer.
Okay.
So, long story short of it, you're not going to see any amenities in that red zone.
Yeah.
Okay.
You could see an industrial building in there that's allowed under present zoning, but you won't see a restaurant, you won't see a dry cleaners, you won't see those types of amenities.
In the red zone.
And make it plain simple. It's a question of whether that neighborhood Turnpike wants to see redevelopment under industrial use or multifamily. Under the overlay, it encourages multifamily. Without the overlay, only industrial redevelopment will occur there, only.
Yeah.
So you currently have a lot of single-story buildings there, locally owned and operated. Those can go up for sale. Market conditions, if and when it ever happens, could be a multi-story office building, more involved industrial warehouse distribution. Turnpike's somewhat fortunate right now because a lot of the businesses that are along it are locally owned and operated and run a pretty quiet operation.
Yeah.
That may not.
Very good, actually.
That may not always be the case.
Yeah.
Under underlying industrial zoning, what you see is what you get. It's zoned for industrial development. The theory behind the overlay is to encourage multifamily there as a long-term solution that's better than what's out there now and what could be built under industrial zoning.
Thank you for your time.
My name's Jerry Iannetta. I'm not a resident of Chelmsford. I do live in Tewksbury, however, for the last 28 or so years. Greg works with me. I represent the owner of 300 and 330 Billrica Road. We bought those buildings as an investment that had it's single-tenant buildings with long-term leases in place. And I see, and I'm responsible for, as the Northeast Regional Vice President, for almost 10 million square feet. That starts, so 10 million square feet, that starts in the Philly area all the way up through New England. And to just want to echo a little bit of what Greg said and maybe Brian. My portfolio is about 92% leased. The areas of that 8% are suburban properties that could be in good locations or okay locations, but lack amenities. And you look at those Chelmsford buildings that we own, okay, they're good buildings. They're great location. And we're not competing. We're not even close to competing. Kronos, yes, they wanted to be in a single building, housing all of their employees at one location, but we challenged that with our park environment that we gave them, and at the end of the day, we couldn't check the box of amenities. And we're not talking about changing this into a Burlington. I don't think anybody wants that, okay? We're talking about, I think, the 15 or 20% that one of the board members said, and just to be able to give these employees what it is that they're craving. And right now, we are not attracting millennials, and we're losing businesses because of that. And I came here not to speak. I came here to listen and to understand what your community is all about. what your thoughts are on this already zoned industrial area, and just see, are they really going to help create an environment that's working, or are they going to just let it go? Right now, you're letting it go. Okay, the whole Massachusetts area, as Greg mentioned, it starts in Boston, 128, 495. 495 South has always been behind the 8 ball, always the highest vacancy. Right now, they're actually at the lowest vacancy they've had in years. And here's an area in Chelmsford that worked amazingly in the 90s, and you're seeing the worst times when everyone else is seeing the best. So right now, as Greg mentioned, there are cycles, and we're going to be ready to go down to another cycle, excuse me, in the valley. And if you think this is tough now, if we don't get this area to compete in the good times, you can imagine what's going to happen in the bad times. And you're going to see empty buildings. You know, we're an ownership that REITs own these individual properties. We're putting money into it. We're going to continue to put money into it. But not everyone's in that position. So what do? You get cobwebs, you get, you know, you just get vacant buildings that don't look attractive to anybody. And I can imagine living in that area and going past that every day to get to your homes. That's all I wanted to say. I just wanted to kind of echo a little bit about what some of our colleagues have said in the room already.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Christopher LaValle, 10 Edgewood Road. I'm speaking tonight primarily and first and foremost as a Chelmsford resident, but also as a Precinct 4 representative, as well as someone with experience working in an office park like we're talking about today. I work for a global pharma company down in Cambridge in Technology Square, and one of the benefits of working in Technology Square are the amenities. Most of the people working in the company, it's a global company. We work 40 to 80 hours a week. We look for places that we can live, work, and play, like someone said earlier. We want walkability. We want an easy access to commuter rails. We want places that we can take a quick break from that 80-hour work week, go to a quick lunch, not have to drive a half hour, or take a quick coffee break, go down and enjoy the park and the trees and the grass a little bit. So we're looking for those quick breaks, a quick break from the office desk. A couple of years ago, I went to an all-day training session at one of the areas an office area that looked like the current 129 area. And it was a horrendous experience. We didn't have any place to go for lunch. We only had an hour for lunch, so we didn't have enough time to drive anywhere to get lunch. We ended up having candy bars out of the snack machines. We also had very little access to coffee during the day to keep us going. And that was a pain. But in addition, a lot of the folks that work in our company enjoy the collaboration that comes from going to get a quick cup of coffee and not having to drive. In addition, we have a lot of global travelers in our company because we are a global company. And we look for places that people can come in and stay overnight for a week or so for a quick meeting. But in addition to that, we also have a program at our company where people can come over from our European offices for a month or 2 or 3 at a time and have that exchange of ideas. And our company actually rents apartments in the area so that people can stay there in short-term housing. And it facilitates that exchange of ideas. So what I'm asking is that we take a look at the plan that we have before us and really look at what can attract us. And I think the planning board is on the right track for this. Of course, there are some
some concerns that some of the other residents have brought up, but it sounds like you guys are willing to address that. And I think that that's a great exchange of ideas, and I think that this type of advancement is needed in order to keep us relevant, as other people have said. Thank you.
Thank you.
There's a familiar face.
Hi, I'm not a resident, but my name's Nick Osgood, and I did a recent development here in Chelmsford on Progress Ave, and went through the CIOD process, and it was a challenging process, but we learned a lot through it, and I'm very much in favor of this overlay district and this change, because as cited by other people in the studies that you've done, the amenities are very short. I develop property under NSD real estate, and I'm also a commercial broker. And I'd like to do more things on 129 and maybe some bigger developments. But the amenities have to come. So this project really needs to move forward because it will help the community, not just the developers, not just the real estate owners, but the entire community. We're currently working on some projects in Billerica right now, and I think they've got some similar challenges. So, this community has identified the issues. They're identifying some issues to attract and get the vacancy, to dissipate the vacancy or remove it to the best of their ability, because it kills the values of properties and hurts the tax base tremendously. So that's what I want to say, and very much in favor, and had a pleasure working with the board. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Very good.
Good evening, Glenn Diggs. I'm a member of the Board of Selectmen, town meeting member, and resident of Chelmsford. I think I came to the meeting tonight really just to listen, but as Ed often does, what the heck? Might as well say something. I personally am in favor, obviously, of the proposal. I've spoke about it many times. However, I do have some reservations in terms of some parts of the specifics, and they were addressed tonight, not specifically in detail, but in just general conversation. It was pointed out that the land adjacent to Route 3 is by far the most valuable of the entire area. And, I've heard that the fire department has not said they cannot service something higher, but they said they could service something maybe with more manpower. The question is, what comes into the town maybe to support that manpower? And that I think, at the recent quad meeting that we had, it was pointed out in some ways that the initiative overall is fine, but the emphasis on being bold may need some shifting. And what I would suggest is that we have a more scalable plan, meaning that the height of the buildings adjacent to Route 3 and the height of the buildings adjacent to the protected area scale back. That the height along Route 3 should be higher than the 75 feet you proposed, but the area closer to the residential area should be less. Right now, I believe it's 35 feet. That can increase somewhat, but it shouldn't be the same as the area adjacent to Route 3, because companies are going to want to be visible there. And if they become visible, they'll be the ones that support the growth later on as you move back from there. And so I applaud the efforts of the board bringing everyone here. I think we heard a lot of great comments. I think we already heard one change in that a little area should be included in the protected area, which was great. But I think you need to look at what's most valuable to the town. Some questions have come up about, well, is it really going to change the area of the town, the atmosphere of the town? And a lot about, who are you trying to attract? If you look at the Board of Selectmen, if you look at the Planning Board, and for the most part, if you look at the Finance Board, you're not going to find any millennials on them. And hopefully, down the road, millennials take a greater interest in the town and bring their fresh ideas forward. So we're trying to attract people that we are not. Someone has to do it. It might as well be us, right? But the idea is that if someone said that it takes, a commute to Boston is an hour and a half. I work out of my home now. I have worked in Boston for years. I've worked in Franklin, all over the place. I find that the average commute to Boston now from Chelmsford, if you want to be there anywhere from 8 to 9 o'clock, is 2 hours. All right? Every day. It used to be that if you got out of Boston about 4 o'clock, you could be home in maybe an hour and a quarter. The commute now is 2 hours at home. And the open window of when there is not 2 hours is probably from like 12 to 1:30. I mean, that's how difficult it's become. So so when people talk about not having to travel to work, this presents a golden opportunity because we do have great residential neighborhoods, and people, if they have the opportunity to have a great job and a great town to live in, it's a perfect marriage. And I think the board is trying to address that. All right? One of the things that was talked about was parking or garages. I deal in garages. That's what I do for a living. I sell parking systems. Typically in Boston, if you want to build a garage under your building, you're talking $50,000, $75,000 a space. So if you see a building going up in town that says it's 160 million, 10 to 15 million is probably going for 200 spaces. Used to be that garages would be put in under buildings, 300 spaces, 400 spaces, 500. The typical building going up now has maybe 100. One reason is that people are not driving as much. They're attracting millennials who get around by car, by Uber, whatever the case may be. But the main reason is that the cost is so prohibitive that they have to take away from building what they want to build to building spaces. So providing garages is important, especially if you're going to create a community. I've been dealing a lot this week in Somerville, in Assembly Square. In a block of 4 buildings, large buildings, each one has its own garage, incorporated above ground as part of those buildings, because all of those buildings have retail, residential, and commercial, every one of them. And there's probably no hotter area than Assembly Square right now. So, again, I applaud the efforts. I think the argument of why Chelmsford needs this, we do need the revenue. The town has done a great job in being economically wise in all the monies we have had. If you look in the papers, you'll gladly see towns around us that are not doing so well. Chelmsford is doing well, but you can only be smart with your money so long before things start catching up with you. If any of you have been watching any of the school committee meetings, you know that there's a short-term plan to fund the shortage of space in the all-day kindergarten, and that's probably going to cost between $8 and $9 million over 6 or 7 years. But there's a long-term plan coming, and the long-term plan is going to involve building a new school. No one knows exactly what the plan is yet, but you probably will be facing a new school. If it's a high school, it's $175 million, of which the state will refund 75. It will take 8 years to build it before going through all the funding process. So it's going to take some time. But that 75, 80 million, whatever the case may be, will be added to the residents of the town, not to the businesses of the town. And hopefully, if the initiative is successful, that burden will be shifted to new businesses that come in, and that everyone will be a winner. So again, I think you're on the right track. I just think the emphasis needs to be a little bolder on the Route 3 area. Thank you.
It's maybe not too relevant. My name is Guy Patagna, 16 Vincent Road in Chelmsford. So all I want to say is, I'm a musician, and one of my favorite artists is Joni Mitchell, and she says how most of my people in my neighborhood feel as I do. You never know what you've got till it's gone. Tear down paradise and put up a parking lot. Thank you very much.
Thank you. We also got to hit us in the Yes, sir.
My name is Jerry Goldlust. I represent a business on Turnpike Road. I just have a couple of questions and perhaps then a comment.
Excuse me, Mr. Joyce.
Yes.
It's for my own edification. Just looking at the exclusion zone, it looks like there are 2 exclusion zones there. And I'm wondering why that is.
That,
One down here.
No, it's all
The whole
continuous.
thing. This is just different property.
that red line on top will be removed as part of the final map.
And what's this red line?
That one will be removed.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Will be one contiguous.
The other question I had with regard to the exclusion zone, I mean, there is a multifamily development in there. I'm just curious, how did that get into an industrial zone?
40B.
The 40B.
40B project, which goes before the zoning board of appeals, and it's a whole set of different rules,
Skips his
and regulations that the planning board has nothing to do and has no control over. So that's something that it's through the state, it's some
I see.
state rules.
Yeah, just in general, you know, I think this is a very well conceived and appropriate plan of action. I'm a little bemused by the fact that you had pointed out that the revenues that result from industrial or commercial buildings really benefit the town to a much greater extent, based on the lack of services that may be provided to those people. I think that by having a plan conceived the way you've got it, where you open this up and you expect people to come in and make proposals and take advantage of the possibilities that you have here. I don't think that having a McDonald's and a dry cleaner is really going to do what you want to have happen here. I mean, this whole place needs a facelift. I'm wondering whether or not, and it sounds like it would be a big program, but I really think the town has to be more entrepreneurial with regard to being more deterministic as to what's going to happen here. I mean, it was pointed out that, okay, you don't have a railhead here where people can commute easily by rail. But you could sponsor perhaps public transportation that goes from Lowell or from Billerica right to there. Maybe it's not the town that has to generate that, but they could certainly be instrumental in providing avenues for people to do that and make a profit doing it. Similarly, it's often said that it takes money to make money. If these buildings are empty and you're not getting the tax revenue, maybe there's something the town can do along the lines of an investment. Maybe not by directly making an investment in those properties, but tax abatements or tax relief as an incentive for people to come in, redo the buildings, and regenerate this area. That would be an investment that the town is making by way of lost revenue for a period of time. But in the long run, it may accomplish exactly what you want. People need an incentive to do things. They're not just going to do it magnanimously.
The town has, when we have approved what we call TIFs, tax incremental financing.
Okay.
Where some companies have come into town and they've renovated a building, which increases basically the value of the building. And the town has phased in over the years that extra tax. So there are some incentives through, but it has to go through a town meeting. And if you're the building that you're representing wants more information, they can contact Evan or the Paul Cohen's office. And, there's definitely, the town has reached out and has done that with some. Matter of fact, I hate to say it, but Kronos got one for the building across the street.
Yeah.
So there are some incentives there.
Right.
Yeah, I've got some thoughts on that. I've been quiet all night. You just...
I'm all set. Thanks very much.
Oh.
Thank you.
Let me answer you. You raised it.
He's running. He's running, Ed.
You pushed his button.
Stop laughing. You hit a valuable point. With Kronos, you opened it up, so I'm going to answer it. With Kronos, we've done 2 projects. We gave them, they said if they got a stoplight on 129, they'd stay here. That was going to help them out with their traffic situation. Before that, we gave them a TIF. Runs out next year. I've actually asked about decertifying them, and I was told, well, they're still maintaining their certification, so they get the TIF. TIFs are a very interesting thing. We've talked about amenities. Everything on 129 is nobody's coming here because there's no amenities. Great. Kronos left because there's no amenities. Nobody said tonight that Kronos went to Lowell and got $12.5 million of TIFs and tax incentives. Nobody mentioned that. But I've added up a lot of the Lowell Sun articles that were mentioned, and Lowell, basically, without being an authority on the subject, it looks like they're not going to pay many taxes for at least 4 years in Lowell. Now, I think one of the questions the town has to ask itself is, and I'm a town meeting rep too, so I can speak at town meetings about this. We want to attract businesses. We want revenue. We're doing this basically for revenue. I said we don't zone for money, but basically this whole effort is being done to get revenue to keep up with the schools and all the other town departments. You know, where I live, it doesn't matter if the buildings are rented or not rented. I don't see them. I don't look at them. It'd be nice if they're rented. We're doing this for money, basically. So what we're going to have to ask ourselves, because it's going to happen, some guy's going to come in and say, I've got a big development for you. But geez, I want you to abate my taxes for the next 5 years. Are we going to want to do that kind of development? And that's a question that is going to be before us. And so when you get to TIFs, that gets to be a hot button for me, because all we're trying to do as a planning board is setting the environment. We're trying to put the bait out there, lure people in to do development. We don't have money to do development. We don't own the land. And basically, what I'm trying to do is wrap up my comments right now. Basically, what we're going to face is, how do you compete with a town like Lowell that has got the political juice, we'll call it political juice, to put together a $12.5 million package for a company? And that's basically, yeah, Kronos wanted them all in one building, wanted amenities, wanted all that stuff. But now what we're faced with is, how do you compete with that stuff? And what we're just trying to do here is open up the zoning a little bit in a fashion such that we, as a group, your elected representatives, have some control over it, but also make it more desirable. We have a lot of the players here in the group. A lot of the real estate brokers came in tonight. I don't know if they're still here, but they may be gone. They're the guys who are the real players. They're the guys that can bring in amenities on the first floor of their buildings. You know, they talk about getting amenities. Yeah, it's just not get amenities in the guy next door. It's get amenities into my building on my first floor. And, so, that's what I've got to say. I say TIFs is a good thing, but I would probably, to be honest, be against it in the future. That's what.
Yeah, I'm just reminded of an old Russian saying that if you don't plant potatoes, they don't grow.
Yeah.
My name is Fred Faust. I'm a commercial broker from Lowell. I don't live in Chelmsford, but we represent a number of properties. And we're also the real estate agent for Lowell General Hospital, so we participated with you in putting the screens on the garage, and we're glad to do so because that was a productive process and good communications. And we find working with Evan and other people at the town, and Paul Cohn, there's almost always a productive and very professional discussion. So we see this as an extension to that theme: professional, productive, and hopefully forward-thinking. And with all due respect, a stoplight is not an amenity.
It's something they ask for in a town meeting as a town meeting rep. You're given the sales pitch to get it through.
I understand.
And it was-
and that is the give and take of politics and how we
Right.
deal with real estate and development. And everybody's going to ask for a little bit more than they may get.
Right.
And that's the give and take. And that's the way it works. But the other thing I'd say is very interesting. Yesterday, I was invited to a city council economic development subcommittee meeting in Lowell. And I was there to speak because actually Kronos and Brian's partner, Andrew, were speaking and were welcomed in, obviously, with open arms in terms of coming into the Lowell community and being in the Crosspoint building. And what I find interesting is that if Dr. Wang had found space across the Lowell connector, he would have been staying in Chelmsford. So Lowell does have certain other resources, and they have the political wherewithal with the state delegation to make a compelling package. But I made the same comment at an economic development committee several months ago. Gee, they got a big tax credit. And I was corrected. And again, the amenities and the ability to be on in a single building with 300,000 square feet, the brokers and the developers both said it really, the tax credit was a good thing, but that wasn't the compelling reason. I don't think they're being disingenuous. So I would just say a couple of things because it's been a long evening. One is, obviously you have to find a balance between residential and commercial because there's some people who own residences that are going to be concerned about what the impacts are going to be. It seems like the way we're going, because we're not having everybody get in a car these days, which is a good thing. People want to bike to work and millennials want to walk. And if you have, a good restaurant down the street you can walk to, then some of the traffic kinds of considerations that we may have been concerned about 10 years ago may be mitigated substantially. I guess eventually we'll have self-driving cars with 4 people in them. We won't worry about it at all. But what I want to say is that, people have said this is about money. Well, this is a capitalist society, so money is never off the table. But it's also about quality of life. And it's about millennial, it's about younger people, and it's about smaller business. So while you may not be able to attract Kronos back, which is, I think, an unusual situation because everybody doesn't look for 300,000 square feet, the smaller businesses, the entrepreneurs that we're seeing in Lowell, those people are looking for price points, but they're also younger and looking again for the same kind of amenities. So it's not just a Kronos model. It's not 100,000 square feet at a time. It could be 5,000 square feet. It could be 10,000 square feet. There's a lot of startups. Obviously, the links to institutions such as UMass Lowell create tremendous opportunities. And Route 3 in that location, if you just, if a bulldozer hit that area tomorrow, it would be one of the most desirable areas in the state to do business. So I was, you already stole my thunder on the agricultural metaphor, but I was going to say, given the chairman of the board here, that Henry certainly knows that if you're not going to fertilize the crop and you're not going to till it over and you're not going to take care of it, nothing's going to grow. So you have work to do. You really do. And anybody who thinks we can just let this thing, go, you're just going to have deteriorating buildings. That's certainly not going to help property values in any manner. So I would just say to the gentleman who is the musician, he mentioned the Joni Mitchell song. I thank God for Google. I just looked at my phone, and she also sang the circle game. And I think unless you implement something like this, you're going to be going in a big circle for a long time. So thank you for entertaining me.
All right. It is getting close to 10 o'clock now. A few of us are probably going to want to go home and go to bed after a while. We're going to
If I could just
Cut
say
this
one
off at
word.
10.
That would be great, Henry. Thank you.
All right.
Good evening. My name is Donald Van Dyne. I'm chairman of the Economic Development Commission. There's been a lot of reference made to the Economic Development Commission this evening. There's a number of members here with me tonight. I want to assure everyone that this is not a new issue for Chelmsford. It's been talked about since 2010. It was referenced in the master plan 2010. In fact, our charge for the EDC came about in 2009. And we are expected to work with the community development director and the town manager in an effort to advocate for economic development. And what exactly does economic development mean? It is hopefully trying to find that balance between the quality of life issues in Chelmsford as well as retaining and attracting businesses to Chelmsford. Economic development is a big piece of Chelmsford, and the success of Chelmsford is going to hinge upon economic development. Now, I can assure everyone that what we're doing here and what the planning board has worked on and the EDC has worked on with the planning board, it's been a partnership. I can assure you we are zoning for the future. The overlay district, it has checks and balances, and this is something I want to applaud the planning board for putting together, because they crafted an overlay district that addresses our current needs and our needs in the future, by at the same time implementing the checks and balances in the system so it will not get out of control. This is controlled growth. This is what Chelmsford needs. Now, as we continue to work through this process, I'd like to extend, actually, from the EDC. We would be very excited, and I've spoken with the EDC, and we've agreed on this. We'd be very excited if you all would give us an opportunity to co-sponsor this article coming up in town meeting. We would love to continue to walk with you all through this path. We strongly believe economic development is paramount for Chelmsford. Again, I want to thank the planning board. I want to thank all the town meeting reps in the audience this evening, and everybody at home for considering this issue at town meeting and this fall. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Tom.
I'd like to remind everybody this is a several night process. This is not going to be over for a while. So,
would you like a motion to continue?
Prior to a motion, calendar-wise, similar to every year when we hold zoning hearings in late August, the selectmen are scheduled to sign the warrant on September 12th. In order for this article to be on that warrant, signed as part of that warrant, it needs to be submitted in draft form in its current form with the edits that we've heard this evening, no later than Wednesday the 7th. You guys do not meet until September 14th. Just to refresh your memory, whatever version is signed as part of the Board of Selectmen warrant is not the official version that town meeting votes on. Planning board can continue on September 14th. You can continue to September 28th. It's the FinCom recommendation booklet that becomes the official article that town meeting votes on. And as you recall from past years, that's been the version that the planning board's goal is to have it as the final version with no edits from that date on to town meeting.
When's the drop dead date for finance committee?
Evan, I think the drop dead date for the finance committee will have to be the 29th.
Oops.
Because we have to publish and get it
Yep,
out.
yep. So.
That's even cutting it close.
Okay. So I think part of your task this evening is to discuss whether you're willing and interested to forward the current version with edit of Monmouth and McFarland, go into the exclusion zone, add 19 Monmouth to that. And then George had a specific comment, I think, was it 145C? Commercial uses shall not be allowed within the exclusion zone? What, well, you can send me that. I know that was one of these specific items.
It's
Yep.
it's
It's a clarification.
Just a clarification.
yeah.
What have we got for building height, stories, and feet? So I've got different copies with different numbers on it. What is your understanding of our height?
The current,
on Billerica Road?
current version for 195, 146, 1 building heights, particular to that geographic segment, The draft you have this evening, which is what went into the mailing, was not to exceed a maximum of 90 feet. So that's also a revision that you want to make this evening as part of your final working draft. So be it, the other option that the board may want to consider is leave it at 90 and invite the fire chief in for your September 14th meeting and have a conversation.
Okay, so basically, I've lost track of my versions. Basically, it doesn't say 6 stories, it just says 90 feet.
It says, by right may be 6 stories and not to exceed a maximum height of 90 feet. That's what the current version.
Well, we leave it that way.
That's acceptable.
I think that's okay. I mean,
Well, we leave it that way.
the odds of it being 90 feet, 6 stories, they can get it in 75 feet. The number of buildings it could be.
Yeah.
But, I do want to think about what a previous speaker had said about maybe encouraging, taller buildings closer to Route 3 and lower buildings. So I just want to think about that in my head, how that can be done.
The way
I want to discuss that.
It is currently done. I mean, the way this is set up is that area adjacent to Billerica Road, Route 3, would be by right 6 stories, not to exceed whatever, 75 or 90 feet. Anything outside of that is by right 4 stories, 45
Then
feet.
it's special permit.
Under COID, anybody can propose a higher height.
It's basically from Alpha Road, it's basically from, what do they call it, Waterford Place or Watergate? It's basically the big buildings, from Alpha Place down to the town line.
So this.
So it's a short
that's a
distance.
problem.
It's currently written, it's step down.
Sure, I just want,
sure.
it was a very valid point, and that was one of the things we talked about, and master plan was,
Yep.
Peter Robeson brought it up, and
Sure.
he said, buildings want to be closer to Route 3, should be, taller,
Right.
so they can be seen from Route 3, so they have that marketability, and, but of course,
Do you want to target trying to invite the fire chief in for your meeting on the 14th?
I think his letters
Say that'd be a
clear.
good idea.
I mean,
It won't hurt, I guess.
won't hurt.
You can also handle it with a subcommittee, if you want to appoint a couple members, talk offline with the chief, you can do that.
No, if
See if he's free.
if he's willing to come in and talk
Yeah.
about it.
Yeah, but I don't want to get in a situation where we limit ourselves.
Crossing the bridge before we get to it.
Yeah, exactly, before
I
we,
think just let his letter stand then.
Yeah.
I mean, it's,
I don't want to limit ourselves too much here.
I also don't
We're
want.
not bad off right now.
Yeah, I don't want to get into a situation too where he says he needs more manpower and it's because of the planning board. I don't want to get into that. So,
No,
You don't
but
want to get,
I'd like to be in a situation where if a developer came in with a concept that was higher, there was the ability to look at it as a special permit situation with the inputs of the fire chief and consideration of the investments that would be required to support it.
That's kind of where I think we're at right now.
We already have that.
Yeah,
right?
that's where we are, that's where we're at now.
Where
Yeah.
we're at.
Yeah.
Yeah,
so I think we're good.
So I think we're good.
okay,
All right,
I'm happy. We ought to send it, then, shouldn't we?
Now,
no.
do you, Evan, do you think we should take and have another public meeting in here to take and talk about this? Well, on the 14th, we've got the Cushing,
Your decision for
we got
12th
Kidder, we've got some other stuff coming. So, I don't know how open the board is to having another evening for this.
Mr. Chairman, you've already said in the letter that it will be carried on till the 14th.
We're going to continue it, Bob. We're just determining what date and how our schedule works, so.
I mean, I want as many people to get their comments in as possible.
Right, and as far as the warrant goes, I mean, as long as the language is set up to be inclusive.
Weren't you the one that was just complaining about the language?
What I'm saying is, that we put space holders in.
Right.
And even if the finance committee and the board of selectmen can't vote on it, they'll vote at town meeting, before the meeting.
Well, we know that.
So,
It's happened, it's done, it's happened before.
We've been around the bend a few years. We realize that.
I have been around the bend.
I've been around the block.
I know, I used to sit there.
No, you said
We
over there.
understand that.
I would,
understand it, well, I didn't think
I would say keep it as September 14th because of the letter that went out, and it did say in there the September 14th. And then, I think we can dispatch Kidder Road fairly quickly, and,
Well,
you
we just
know,
have to see what 11 Cushing does.
11 Cushing, it is what it is, and we have to do it. And then, because I think that's where we're at right now. And then we have to have another meeting in between the two meetings, and so be it, and we'll put Cushing Place on that, or someone else on that, so. So,
Pick a meeting date?
Okay.
Do you want to just,
If we,
You said there are going to be more meetings, but you're going to write something up, and that's going to be the draft?
There's a,
Then what happens after
language
that?
is right over there.
We're trying to figure that out right now.
wait, there's,
More meetings, or there's not, and this is the final thing?
no.
No,
this is
no,
not the
no, we're
final.
trying to figure out what our sequence is here.
I continue to the 14th on Cushing Place. The chair can limit that item to an hour if you want. You
Yeah.
can make this continue public hearing first, so that way you give your residents, the ability to come in as close to 7 o'clock, 7:30, and get them out and make Cushing wait.
Why don't we
can
start
make
at
the
We
two?
can
public
start at
meeting
6.
Can do that as well.
Is that Palmer's hours yet?
Started tonight
If
at
we
6.
start at 6
Yeah.
and get Cushing out of the way, and then people will
Public
be
hearing.
public hearing at 7, which is
7.
normally scheduled for, I
It'd be a
think. would
long
be-
night, but
Yeah,
heck.
I think that's the right thing to do.
Okay,
yeah.
solved.
So,
So what I'll do is I'll revise the map. Monmouth and McFarland will go into an exclusion zone, including 19 Monmouth. I'll work with George on the specific wordsmithing. I'll get that back out to the board prior to officially forwarding it to the town manager's office for inclusion at the Board of Selectmen warrant signing on the 12th.
so I move to continue the public hearing to September 14th at 7 o'clock.
Second.
All's in favor?
Aye.
aye.
So for the audience, you want to tell them, or?
We will be here September 14th, 7 o'clock for the public hearing. We will actually be here earlier. You're more than welcome to come here at 6 when we're trying to do Cushing Place. We hope to see you here at the same time. And I think,
Motion to.
yes,
May I move to it?
is there anything else on the list? I
Yes,
don't
you may.
think so.
I'll second that one.
Yeah, amen.
All in favor?
Aye.
Good night.
There we go.
Okay, we're out of here.